noon hour is here.
Check it out.
And you're locked on to Utah's highest rated, most listened to sports radio station.
It's my station. It's my station.
This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Time to make the donuts. Hans and Scotty G. Did I do that right, Lloyd?
You did do
that
right.
Did I do that correctly?
Well done.
Jake and Ben filling in for Hans and Scotty G at the moment. We're hoping to catch up with Scotty G coming up here shortly. Hans is on sabbatical, someplace tropical again. Where did he go, Lloyd?
I think he went to a Dodgers game.
Fiji?
He's become a big Giants fan.
Bora Bora?
Yes.
Hans always makes everybody feel bad for taking vacations, and then he's gone like every 2 weeks to someplace tropical. It's true. Lloyd, Hans made you feel bad about going to your own family's funeral. He said you were vacationing wasn't it your grandpa's funeral? Yeah. So he deserves what he gets when he goes out of town. Hi, Ben.
Howdy.
Long time no talk to.
It's been a minute.
Feeling better than you were last segment or about the same?
Oh, no, I was just so confused about what the lyrics to our song were, and now I'm happy that we're back.
It's two amigos talking sports.
Two amigos on the airwaves.
On the airwaves, talking sports.
Which is true. That's what we're doing.
That is exactly what we're doing. I'm glad I found it. Glad I didn't lose it. They've got it made. Jake's an old soul, loves his tie-dye. Ben's got style with his scarves, which is true. So, yeah, we'll catch up with Scotty G coming up here sometime shortly. Ben, but what do you want to do, Lloyd? Do you want to dive into the story of the day? You want to talk some Jazz Summer League? Or do we could launch into Utah State, but I don't feel like either one of us really wants to do that again. So, let's get to the starting lineup. We'll talk a little Summer League.
This is Hans and Scotty G.
Let's go!
The lineup is set, and it's time to kick off the show with the biggest topic of the day. This is the starting lineup on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ben, the Utah Jazz Summer League has now come and gone. For the listeners that listen to the Jake and Ben show, Ben had a really hot take that I don't know that I disagree with. That would be, Ben, who was the Jazz best player in Summer League?
Oh, I think it was Cody Williams.
There you go.
I think Cody Williams was the Jazz's best player, but I maintain that I think Kyle Filipowski might be the player most likely to see the roster or the rotation on opening night. And maybe both he and Cody get the opportunity to. I haven't talked to Cody yet, other than our draft night interview with him that you were a part of. I don't expect his ego to become an issue that you have to play him on opening night, or otherwise you're going to start a chasm in the locker room that you're never going to be able to repair. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't see that with Isaiah Collier, nor Kyle Filipowski. So you don't have to play the politics of that, whereas if you get a top 5 pick this year, that guy has to be in the rotation next year because it's expected to be one of these drafts that changes the future of your franchise. I had a question from a listener on Twitter who yesterday I was talking about how I thought Kyle Filipowski was so impressive and has a legitimate chance to make it in the NBA. And he asked, this is Alex on Twitter, said, do the Jazz see Kyle Filipowski as a long-term replacement for Walker Kessler or Lauri Markkanen? And my thought is, the Jazz don't have to view anybody as anything at this point.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
agree,
a real strength, right?
I think so, but that's ridiculous, that take.
Well, that's crazy. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's putting the cart before the horse.
I get what you're saying there, but that's ridiculous.
It's not what you do in the draft, period, unless you're a real championship contender like the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they're saying, we've got to get our backup point guard who provides X, Y, and Z, so we're going to trade up and get him. The Jazz are in a point where they're just trying to get as much stuff as possible and then see where the cards lay when they turn them over.
I feel fairly comfortable in saying that Filipowski is not going to be a starting big in the NBA ever.
And I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm just spitballing sports radio stuff here. If I had to make a bet, no way.
I kind of like him. So I could see the potential if he becomes a better defensive player where he could start because his offensive skill set at 7 feet tall is so exactly where the NBA is going. Rebounds, really pushes the ball up the floor with the ball in his hands, can pass in transition, and if you don't guard him, he'll just take it right to the basket where he finishes pretty well. With that said, it doesn't matter. And here's what I will also tell you, and this is where I think it gets really dicey, where I think the Jazz are clearly pointing in the direction of re-signing Lauri Markkanen, and that's really been the conversation around the roster for the last month. And I'm not saying within the Jazz locker room. I'm saying everybody outside nationally looking at the Jazz is about the Lauri Markkanen and his future in Utah. The Jazz don't need to be married to any one thing of what is on this team or not on this team at this point.
Nope.
There is not anything good enough. With all due respect to Lauri Markkanen, who's a heck of a player, you don't need to do anything with Lauri Markkanen in mind because you're so far away. You don't start drafting with the idea of pieces other than, will this guy make the NBA and can he be a good player? And if he's good, that makes us better. Which is why I do believe there are conversations with the Golden State Warriors about trading Lauri Markkanen. Because it's all in the idea of how do you get better long term? How do you get this team close to winning a title long term and put yourself into that conversation? And they're so far from that right now, it would be a disservice to not have those conversations. And yeah, you draft Kyle Filipowski with the hope that he's better than Walker Kessler and then you don't have to play Walker. Not that you don't like Walker, but Walker's pretty good, and if you get somebody better, that's better for the franchise. So when you're looking at how these pieces fit, I don't even think fit matters in the slightest. Outside of maybe culturally, are they somebody who you could see being a face of a franchise or being comfortable, happy living in Utah long term? That might be the only fit I ever look at.
Certainly now. Yeah, no, I totally agree. You want as many good players as you can possibly get. And most of them, I remember talking about this at the beginning of the rebuild where we were talking about who was going to be around. It was like nobody. They're going to turn over the whole roster. Don't get worked up about Jared Butler. He's not going to be on the team. Just bringing that up specifically.
No reason.
There's not a guarantee anybody on the team is going to be on the team. Think about this is a pretty dramatic example, but think about the Lakers went through all that rebuilding and then they signed LeBron. And you remember that first year of LeBron, it was a tryout who was going to remain on the team. And what was the answer? Nobody. Nobody from that team made it 3 years. What, Kuz?
Kuz was the
last one.
Yeah.
And he hadn't been a Laker for a while.
And even then, he won a title and still was gone.
Yeah, they traded Brandon Ingram. They traded all their assets. The rebuild turned out to be, well, how do you bring in washed-up old vets to surround LeBron, you know? So maybe all these young players are off the roster in 2 years because they make a big move for Giannis or something. I mean, it's to your point, who cares about fit? You just want as many good players as you can get so you can either determine what the fit is going to be going forward or totally change where you're going to go. And they have the luxury of doing that. So I agree with that. If Filipowski is better than Walker Kessler, well, that is a home run. And not that Walker is that great, but they got Filipowski in the second round.
Which is probably why I'm not grading the John Collins acquisition all that harshly. And I don't know if I would call it a success yet. In fact, it may have hurt you. If John Collins won you 5 more games last year than you should have, and the ultimate goal was to get a better lottery pick, John Collins was a mistake in that sense. And having $8 million of Rudy Gay come off your books this year and not having another $17 million owed to John Collins this season and maybe $25 next year if he opts into his player option, which I'm just not guaranteed or I'm not super confident it's going to happen, but it very well may.
Oh, it will.
He might.
Be crazy to leave $25 million on the table.
If he has a good year, the way contracts are going, he's only 28. He could get a 3-year, $70 million deal, which, yeah, the $25 million is not the same he'd make that first year, but he's making a lot more on the back end. I don't know. I'd say it's 50-50 right now. I could be wrong. But it's why I'm not that willing to hammer the Jazz over acquiring John Collins because you're just trying to see what fits. It's not, you wish it was more organized. It's not right now. You know, this vision of what this team is going to look like and who's going to be the face and who's going to be the number 2 player and who's going to be the, second all-star next to Lauri Markkanen. We don't know if Lauri Markkanen's going to be on the team. So it's hard to even draw up that type of structure of the franchise.
But that's their strength right now. That's 100%. The strength of their position. They're not married to anything. We talked about Golden State and their motivation to trade for Lowry in the first place is because there's basically no other player in the NBA that can actually fit the role that they're looking for. That's a position of weakness because Golden State either doesn't get the player or they're going to give up a king's ransom to Danny Ainge.
Yeah, they're either stuck being good, not great, and they're not even good. They missed the playoffs last year. Speaking of Golden State, without Lowry, or giving up everything to get him and being good but not great also. Lowry's not going to make them an instant title contender. He doesn't fix all the problems they have. He's a lot better. He's a talent improvement in Golden State. But yes, that's a position of weakness. That's a position of desperation. And the Jazz are really fighting, putting themselves in a spot of desperation. And while fans, I think, feel some desperation about wanting to see this team get better, I will tell you Danny Ainge is not operating that way, nor is Justin Zanuck or Ryan Smith.
I actually think Ryan Smith might be feeling it.
More than Danny Ainge.
And the reason that I point that out is because I think it's important to know that Ryan hired Danny for a reason. And so I'm not saying that even as criticism to Ryan, because what enthusiastic owner wouldn't be like, God, we got to start winning. And he's got to sell tickets and all the things like, hey, we need some W's. I'm sure he's feeling it because you would be too.
Well, and he sees it on Twitter.
Is that he doesn't really, it doesn't matter that he's feeling it.
Right.
Because he hired Danny Ainge, who's just going to do what he wants to do.
It's not dissimilar.
Which, again, I think was brilliant of him.
To a marriage where you hope that person comes in and fills your weaknesses. You hope that whatever Ryan's weakness is as an owner is made up for by Danny Ainge. But you know what? I would hope it would be the opposite as well, where at times I bet you Danny Ainge has been patient to a fault.
Yep.
And you need somebody to come in, whether that was Wick Grossman, what's his name, the owner in Boston, or now Ryan Smith at some point says, hey, Danny, I get that this isn't perfect, but we can't let perfect be the enemy of good. And at some point, the Jazz need to be good again. And at some point, Ryan has to come in and say, Danny, you probably have to include the 5th first-round pick in this trade to acquire the next guy. And that's got to be good enough. And then we've got to figure it out from there. But you can't stay at step 1 this whole time until the perfect move presents itself, because it often never does. And nor has any team ever been built perfectly. So you hope that they complement each other in that sense. But back to this point, bringing it back to the starting point of this conversation, what do we expect out of Kyle Filipowski, or what could he bring to the table, or who could he replace? He could replace everybody. He may not replace anybody, and both are fine outcomes.
He could replace anybody on down to Adam Clowkey, honestly. And I'm making a joke because Adam's the head of the Jazz locker room. I'm just saying that he might not be in the league. That's all. And I give a shout out to Adam Clowkey, who I like very much.
I think, again, it's so early to say, you hit this guy's going to make it or not make it. You need one of these guys to hit from this draft. And from a PR perspective, I guess you would hope it would go in order, that Cody Williams would be the best player, Isaiah Collier would be number 2, and the guy you drafted in the second round would be number 3. But Rudy Gobert was a lot better than Trey Burke, and they came out in the same draft, and that's one of the best and most consequential drafts in Jazz history. So you just need one of these guys to make it and be above average. And I think you've at least got early signs that that's potentially possible.
I think Cody Williams is the best bet for that.
I still think so too.
Out of the last 2 years, I would say is the best bet. Although I think Taylor Hendricks' ceiling might be higher. He's got a long way to go to get there.
The fact that Cody can do something with the ball in his hands is really
right now.
If
Hendricks could do, that's my point.
Yes, if Hendricks could.
If Hendricks added that to his game.
Yeah.
Because Hendricks is the unicorn from the size and athletic standpoint. He's like the ideal. When the good Lord was putting together a basketball player for the year 2024, he put together Taylor Hendricks.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty interesting point. And if you were to pick 3 players on this roster right now, this Jazz roster, to all hit their ceilings, who are the 3 you would pick? It would be Lowry, Taylor, and Cody. Because they're 6'9" to 7 feet tall.
Yes.
It's that simple.
And-
it's like that's just where the league is going.
And athletic as hell.
And as athletic as hell. Yeah, you're exactly right. So if you could get those three guys who all project as 6'9" to 7 feet tall, Lowry's 7 feet tall, that can stand on the perimeter and shoot threes or attack off the dribble, those would be the three best case scenarios panning out. Better than Walker at his best, better than Keontae George at his best, better than Kyle Filipowski at his best. Where Kyle is interesting is that he's 7 feet tall and he already does some of those things.
I would argue that if LeBron were 6'3", he'd be a borderline NBA player. Maybe not even one.
He could still be in the NBA, but yeah, he's not.
Everybody
that good.
bends over backwards to give him credit about his basketball IQ and like whatever. I'm not here to judge somebody's basketball IQ, but if he weren't 6'8" and able to run over everybody on the floor, he certainly would not be in the conversation of the best players to ever play.
I would buy that argument more about Giannis, who might not be in the NBA if he wasn't 7 feet tall, because his skill level is good. It is not LeBron good. You know, LeBron's a great passer and has shot okay in his career. Giannis can't shoot at all. And while he averaged like 8 assists last year, a lot of it is, well, I'm going to run you over, and so somebody has to come guard me, and I'm just going to pass it to that guy.
Sure.
So I'm with you.
But Taylor has that high ceiling because of how big he is.
But to that point, it also brings up their floor way more than people recognize.
I agree with that.
Your floor is so much higher when you're. It's the problem with Isaiah Collier, and why the worst draft pick the Jazz got this year might be Isaiah Collier. He's 6'2".
Yeah, and if you're 6'2", your floor is bagging groceries. If you're 6'9", your floor is 10th man on the bench.
Micah Potter is on the Team USA reserve team right now.
Right.
He's on the reserve roster for Team USA. Micah Potter is. He's 6'10", and he shoots okay. But it's the first part. So he's 6'10".
6'10". And to call him a reservist, I mean, that they're really just practice players that are fodder for the...
Come and, be a little bit dangerous shooting the ball, so we have to adjust that at some point.
Right.
There's going to be a player like you who's way better than you in Europe that we're going to face off against in the Olympics.
So that's a little misleading. But I think your point still stands. Because that stuff matters. And that's why I think it's great that Danny Ainge made these draft picks, because hoping the 6'1" guy plays like he's 6'7" is something that the Jazz sold for a long time. From Donovan Mitchell's day one, his wingspan was talked about. And here's a little hint. Like, not that wingspan isn't important, but wingspan is a trick to make small players sound big.
It's a lie.
Yeah, again, it matters, but it
matters a little.
Donovan Mitchell's wingspan was, 6'7" or something like that. So people wanted to play it off like he's actually 6'7", even though he's 6'1".
I would have preferred Donovan Mitchell, and everyone would be 6'8" with a 6'5" wingspan than 6'1" with a 6'9" wingspan.
I don't know. Hoffa or Rougeau might disagree with you.
Sure, Hoffa might. And still, I think the height might be really beneficial.
He was like 6'10" with like a 6'3".
He's got little alligator arms.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
No, that's why I'm saying it matters. But why is it every time you draft a player that's undersized, you're like, but his wingspan?
Correct.
Oh, man, look at that. He's basically 7'6".
Yeah.
It's like, no, not really. But it's better than the alternative. So it's better to actually have the size. And then the thing with Taylor, and we'll learn more about Cody Williams, but the athleticism is through the roof.
Yeah. Yeah. Taylor's athleticism is pretty exciting. Cody is, I've used this word a lot, he's more slithery than explosive right now. His brother is so explosive because he's so powerful. And we'll see how Cody's body fills out. If Cody's body fills out, what I was really surprised at Summer League from Cody Williams was how easily he finishes on top of the rim. He dunks really easily without being Donovan Mitchell. The rocket ship started and he took off to get to the rim, and it was so powerful. Cody, his finishes are pretty soft. You know, he's not throwing down huge hammer dunks, but he really does it really easily. And he can do it in the half court. He can do it from the perimeter. He can do it cutting baseline. He can do it, taking guys off the dribble. He can do it in fast break situations. I thought that was maybe what I learned the most about him, was how easy that is. Because then if he does add the weight and adds the strength in his legs and his core to withstand, some of the physicality of the league, it's going to be a real tool for him. The way, Paul George added that. And Paul George was more athletic coming out of Fresno State, but didn't become this type of player that we've seen over the last few, 10 years now, until he got to the league. And some of it is just because of the growth of his body. This
overall point is why your Boris Diaw take was so ludicrous in the last show. Because if that guy were 6'4", he would have been bagging groceries.
Well, Boris Diaw is maybe one of the more fight Boris Diaw. Well, honestly, one of the bigger underachievers in NBA history because his natural skill set was absurd. And I've asked him the story. I think I've got it on my Twitter account somewhere. You can read it if not. It's written out there. He has the famous story of walking into the Phoenix Suns locker room during training camp or, whatever. And they're doing all the athletic testing. And Amari Stoudemire, who at the time was considered maybe the greatest physical specimen in NBA history at his height with his leaping ability. And he said, what was the bar that Amari cleared on the vertical rack? And Boris Diaw walks in, and he's drinking a latte, and he puts it down, and he's wearing flip-flops, slides, the slides that the basketball players wear. And he takes his slides off. He's not in shoes, and he clears the rack higher than Amari Stoudemire with his leaping ability. This is the story, and he confirmed it to me. Now, that could still be a lie, but he said he had the rumor is he had a bigger vertical, reached higher than Amari Stoudemire, and was absurdly skilled, and won championships with San Antonio, but was never a top 20 player in the NBA, but has the skills apparently to get there and never did.
Not a top 200 player in the NBA.
Oh,
that
he
guy
was
got
top 200.
Way too much credit for
Boris
being
Diaw was great.
He could barely get off the couch. Not only do I not believe that story.
It's been talked about by too many people for me to not think that there's a...
That feels like a fat guy legend kind of thing.
He might have been... who was it? Belushi. Just one of those freak athletes and the body type didn't match.
Did you know that Prince Fielder could actually run a 4.340? It feels like one of those.
Okay. I hear what you're saying. Boris Diaw's third year in the league when he was 23. He won Most Improved Player. He averaged 13 points, 6 assists, and 7 rebounds. He could play. That dude could really play for a while. But back to our point. Jazz have added a lot of size.
And athleticism.
And you know what? Kyle Filipowski really fits that. You have that 4-player unit. Potentially, you could have Flip at the 5, Lowry at the 4, or Taylor at the 4, Lowry at the 3, Cody at the 2. You've got a huge lineup that really runs the floor well. Like, you can kind of see a little bit of the fog clearing of how this team could look pretty interesting.
3, 2, 1. It's the 10th annual Top 60 and 60. Get your college football fix every day at 1:30 as the Zone counts you down to the start of the 2024 season by listing off the top 60 players in the state of Utah as voted on by the local media and you, the fans. You'll also hear from the coaches as they talk about the players that will impact their season the most. It's the Top 60 and 60, weekdays at 1:30, presented by 5 Star Painting on your home of the best college football coverage in Utah. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hans Olsen and Scotty G. That's right. Yeah! On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, 12:33 up and down the Wasatch Front. Hope you're all having a good one. Jake's hanging out with us for one more segment. Hans is out today, but don't worry, he'll be back tomorrow. His vacation minus his wife.
Or Willie.
Well, that's true.
Where did he go again, Scotty?
He says he's going to be back, but Willie.
Is he the middle of Nevada somewhere?
Well, that's the thing. He said California because he kind of alluded to the fact that Mama wanted to go to California to go to the beach. But I'm looking at Amanda's right here. She's right here. His mom's right here.
Wow.
This is
awkward.
Probably, I'm not going to lie, this is probably top 5 most awkward moments on the show.
I would be uncomfortable if I were you. Yeah, 100%. Especially Hans, the guy who shamed Lloyd for going to his grandpa's funeral.
Yeah, I may have done that too. I might have been involved in that.
Thank you for admitting it.
It wasn't just that I mean, that Lloyd sending us all these food texts and stuff like that. Like, Lloyd kind of turned it into a vacation.
Oh, wow.
I sent you a picture of food? So that was bad?
Yeah, you're like, oh, man, I'm enjoying all these sopapillas down here. And I'm like, Lloyd, you're supposed to be grieving.
I'm grieving with food.
Well,
eating my sorrow.
Really over the top excited about and then rubbing my nose into it because when I'm in Albuquerque or New Mexico, I don't eat well. But you were eating like a freaking, Saudi Arabian king down there.
Are you sure this is the path that you want to take on this? Are you sure about
no, I'm just saying that's why we had I was like grieving for you. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, this is how you eat in New Mexico. This is how you do it right. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I thought you'd be having funeral potatoes in a ward house somewhere. But
not in Santa Fe. You don't have funeral potatoes. You have funeral sopapillas.
I just want to know how many pina coladas Hans had for breakfast. I mean, if he's down there unsupervised, like back in the candy store, you know where you get my drift?
Wow.
That's funny. Wait, I should go grab his mom since he's not here.
I feel like that would start a real bad fire.
That was one of the greatest moments in this show's history.
So, Amanda's right there in that white vehicle right there. Go see if you can grab her. Real quick.
This is what we should be doing
What's
right
that?
now. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, if we're gonna do this, let's do it right. Hey Jake, appreciate you hanging out. Overall, and I know you and Ben did just a fabulous job. In fact, I was kind of glad that you kind of took over that segment because I thought you and Ben did a fantastic job breaking down Summer League. You agree with his Summer League assessment on Filipowski?
No, not entirely. I just don't know if he's big enough to be able to stay on the floor defensively. And Ben made a good point, too, earlier in the day that we haven't seen him necessarily in person yet to see the capability there. But he's such a defensive liability, Scotty. I worry, how much can he actually play? You know what I mean? Imagine him going up against Steven Adams. He's just going to get pushed into the third row,
great.
right? Yeah, it's not going to be great. So, right now I think he could be a 10 or 15-minute-a-night curveball type of small ball 5, maybe push the tempo because he's really good at that. I just don't know. I don't know if I agree with Ben in his top level assessment.
Well, and that's the thing. I think you're looking at a situation where I think that there's the ability to be a rotational guy. I just don't know about what level he'll be at. And I think you're spot on that one. Cody Williams, I thought you saw a lot in what his ability might be. But here's my other question for you. And you watched this team extensively last year. You saw him at the NBA level, not necessarily at the G League level. But is it unfair for us to look at the overall? Now, I know he had a good, last game. But is it unfair for us to be a little disappointed in the play of Taylor Hendricks overall in Summer League?
No, because Summer League doesn't matter. And he has – so we were talking about this, Scotty. He has the most potential out of any of the Jazz young players. I'm not saying that he gets there or that he is necessarily the ends up being the best player, but his ceiling is the highest based on his athleticism and his size. If he learns the skills – then he could be the best player out of all of them. But he's got a long way to go.
Okay, but you aren't disappointed that you didn't see more flashes from him in Summer League?
No.
See, I am.
Okay.
Because I want to see guys look for long stretches like the best player out on the court. And I don't think that's unrealistic to expect that from Taylor Hendricks if he's going to be what we expect him to be. So in Summer League.
The example I always point to, and maybe it's getting tired at this point, but Jermaine O'Neal sucked for 4 years in Portland. Not just didn't, or not just, he didn't show even glimpses. He sucked because he got into the league as a high school player. He didn't even know how to tie his shoes, but he had the size, he had the athleticism, and as soon as he put it together, he ended up being an all-star in the East for years and years and years. And it's just because if you draft on potential, it's potential for a reason. They got a long way to go. I don't know, Scotty. Maybe I didn't expect much out of him because he can shoot all right. He can play some defense, but that's it. He needs to learn how to dribble. He's got to learn how to pass, let alone positioning, all those sorts of things. So I think he's so much of a project. I mean, did Rudy, and I don't know this, I'm asking, did Rudy dominate his second year of Summer League?
I can't remember. That's a good question.
I can't remember either. I don't think so.
But I would agree with everything you're saying for all of next season in the NBA. I don't expect him to do anything at the NBA level next year. But at Summer League, I think it's realistic for him to have stretches where he flat out dominates. And I'm not saying, you and I, we were kind of starting in Salt Lake about the same time. And you and I both remember that second year where Jerry and Kevin O'Connor made Darren Williams show up.
Right.
And Darren played one game, and they're like, go home. Just go home.
I do.
We don't need to see anymore. Everything we needed to see, you're done. Because, and to a much lesser extent, Keontae George, too, where, he played in Salt Lake, and they're like, okay, we're good here. Just, you're done. We don't need to see anymore.
It's interesting. I'm glad you brought up Keontae George. I would feel more like you do about Taylor Hendricks if that was Keontae George, because, and to lead into your Darren Williams point, Darren was so skilled. Do you remember how skilled Darren was day one?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was super skilled at Illinois. Keontae George is super skilled. Taylor Hendricks isn't. They didn't draft Taylor Hendricks because he's super skilled. They drafted Taylor Hendricks because he's 6'10", long, and is the unicorn, has the athleticism. I mean, you wonder, he's not as big as Giannis, and I know this, bear with me on comparisons or whatever, but Giannis didn't know how to play when they drafted him. You draft the unicorn because of the potential, and there are plenty out there that are drafted because they're the unicorn physically and don't do anything. And that's why I'm saying don't bet, Taylor Hendricks is going to become Scottie Pippen. But those players, because of their size and athleticism, have such a higher ceiling than I guess you could say Darren Williams, but I was about to say Donovan Mitchell ever did. And I'm not saying Taylor Hendricks is going to be as good as Donovan Mitchell, probably not, but his ceiling is way higher. Because Donovan's 6'1".
I see. I get where you're coming from. 100%. I get where you're coming from. And maybe this is totally unfair on my part, and I will totally own it if that's the case. I just wanted to see more. I wanted to see more. I wanted to see stretches where it's like, and I always use the example of some guy who knows nothing about draft picks, knows nothing about where guys are drafted, who they play, the experience level, any of that, and have them walk into a gym, and I want you to tell me who the best player is out on the court. And I wanted there to be stretches where they could look at Taylor Hendricks and say, bam, that guy's the best player on the court. And I just didn't think that was unfair to ask for a long periods of stretches during Summer League. It doesn't have to be from start to finish, doesn't have to be the whole shebang. I just wanted there to be good stretches where Taylor Hendricks flat out dominated. And we got a little bit there at the end. We got a little bit, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough to be able to say that. But not just, yeah.
I'd come along more with you, I think, if it were a guard. Like in hindsight,
okay.
in hindsight, remember when Owl Neto outplayed Trey Burke in the Summer League?
Yeah.
That probably should have raised more red flags. Again, not that you can read that much into Summer League, but I think you get my point. Like Trey was just in the national championship in college. I mean, he was a skilled guard. He should come in and be more prepared for the NBA game because he's skilled. Whereas, you draft a player on potential, I just don't think it's as comparable. But to your point, I mean, it still shows that he's got a lot to show. I'm just not ready to close the book, nor are you, I understand. But,
no, I'm not.
But I wasn't necessarily expecting it. Now, if we saw it, it would have been certainly encouraging.
So what are your reasonable expectations for Taylor Hendricks coming up next season then?
Oh, 9th or 10th guy on the bench, probably.
Yeah. That's
either
about right.
Back of the rotation or on the outside looking in.
Who out of these three players that are drafted do we see the most of? Is it just simply Cody Williams?
Out of three players this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Because he is, what Ben called him slithery, but which I think is a good word. But he is skilled. Like Cody Williams is skilled, and if he turns explosive like his brother, look out. But you can find a spot for Cody Williams in the rotation.
Yep. All right. Before I let you go, and you've been kind enough to hang out these next segment or these two segments, I want to get your thoughts on real quickly on college football because we're going to spend a little time talking some college football throughout the show today. Number one, I'm going to go win-loss totals on Utah and BYU, and you tell me if you're taking over and under. Okay,
ready.
8.5 8.5 for Utah.
Over.
4.5 for BYU.
Yeah. That's a really good number. That's really good. I'll go over. I don't know. I'm not as optimistic on BYU. I'm extremely concerned that if you're pinning on your hat on, well, the offense is going to be better this year because the quarterback can run, I don't know. That worries me. But 4.5 feels doable. They should be able to get to 5 wins, don't you think?
Okay, what if I said 5.5?
I might go with the under there.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm at too.
Well, it may come down to their non-conference. Do they win both those tough road games, or do they split them, or what?
The SMU and Wyoming?
Yeah.
I'm not sold on Wyoming. They should beat Wyoming. If they lose, and I know Laramie's a weird place, but if they lose to Wyoming, then it's going to be a long year for.
Who's their new coach? Do we not like him?
Jay Sobel. I can't remember how to pronounce his name.
Did they have an exodus? Because they were good last year.
They did not have an exodus. They'll be okay, but BYU needs to be better than Wyoming. I don't care if Wyoming returned everybody.
If they go 2-0, I'm thinking bowl eligible is way more realistic. But I don't know if they can go 2-0.
So I think I would go over. I think BYU's a 5-7. I think Utah. You said over on 8.5.
Yeah.
All right. Let me set it at 9.5. They get to 10.
They should. Right, I mean, if they stay, I mean, they're bringing back basically the whole team, and if they will have a quarterback this year who, in theory, can throw a forward pass, which wasn't true last year, and they still won 8 games last year in a good league. So yeah, I think they should get to 10 wins. It'd be disappointing if they didn't to their fans, I'm sure.
Final question, and we're just doing a shotgun approach on topics with you that we're going to touch throughout the show.
I'm ready.
Concern level for Team USA with a 1-point victory over South Sudan.
0.
Same.
They're way more talented than everybody, and I hate the well, the rest of the world is catching up. Yeah, it may kind of be true, but they should win by 20 points every game, and if they don't, it's because they were out drinking the night before or aren't trying or whatever the case may be.
That's Jake Scott, everybody. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
You are the best, Scotty G. Anytime.
There he is, Jake Scott. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
There's problem solvers. I'm not one of them. I'm a problem creator.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, right. I call it challenging groupthink, but really I'm an instigator.
See, I'm more of a problem pointer-outer.
Doing it wrong.
Exactly. Which I'd probably rather be than a problem creator.
Sure, it's better.
But easier than problem solving.
Neither help.
No, nothing.
Neither fix anything.
No. I mean, my living is to pop on the microphone and say, hey, that team really stunk out there. Well, how did they make it better? I don't know.
Not my problem.
Don't you get paid to figure that out? Boy, that team stinks. Why do they stink? Well, I could give you a number of different reasons.
How do you fix it?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's your problem.
Not up to me.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
Well, I love this job.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. Looking for the latest on the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, and Aggies? Yeah. We've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5 the Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hans off today. Don't worry. We're going to be all right. Hans will be back tomorrow. It's not a week long. It's just a quick little vacation. We'll have him back. It'll be just fine. I know that everybody's freaking out a little bit about this, and Jake and I just touched on it real briefly. Calm down on the 1-point victory over South Sudan. It's fine. It doesn't matter. This is a friendly, it's an exhibition, whatever you want to call it. It meant nothing. These dudes were probably out having a good time last night. You got the best shot from anybody on the planet that South Sudan threw at them. You got JT Thor, who, by the way, is an NBA player, played for the Charlotte Hornets, hit the three-pointer with 20 seconds left, and LeBron's able to get the layup to give them a 1-point victory. South Sudan had a couple opportunities late, but at the end of the day, look, Team USA got it done. Let's just calm down a little bit. They're still going to win this thing. They're still going to win a gold. Everything's going to be just fine. Everything's going to be just fine. Just chill. No, Lloyd. No, not everybody panic. All right. Joining us now, we have got Amanda Olsen. Throw that headset on.
You're doing this.
He is. Oh, we're doing this.
Jake's
I'm
not signing off on this.
This is scary.
No, it's not scary. No, we're just...
No, I'm not scared. I'm just scared for you. Just kidding.
Really? I'm always, every day I'm always scared for me. All right. So I just thought, and Lloyd and I are racking our brains. We're trying to remember if Hans actually said that you were going with him. And he may have just walked that line and led us to believe that you were going on vacation with him. Because he always says, he's like, I'm not really beach guy. But, Mama always likes to go to the beach, and so that's why I do it.
L.A. is Mama's town.
It is my town. He actually has 2 sisters that live down there.
Yeah, but he's not visiting this.
He's not.
Yeah.
They're coming in a few weeks.
They don't even know he's there.
No,
Probably not.
probably not.
Except they run into each other all the time.
I know. We've actually done that.
Really?
They didn't know we were there, and we were at Huntington Beach, and here comes his sister riding her bike down the
That's a little
sidewalk.
awkward.
Yeah, it was very awkward.
All right. So, were you surprised? I mean, that so you go on vacation, or he just says, "Hey, I'm going to California." You're like, "Okay, I guess do whatever." Is that how that goes, or what are those conversations like?
He just tells me he has a guys' weekend coming up usually, and then this last time was different. Yes, he said he was going to LA. So, but I just got back last week.
Oh,
Which is probably why I wasn't invited.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
Those
you were
are air quotations, just so everybody knows.
But you weren't down there for vacation though, were
I
you?
could feel
I
this.
was.
That's
were
right.
you?
Yeah.
Right, Lloyd.
Oh, a little girl strip, or
Yeah.
okay.
I took my 2 daughters and went to Disneyland and stayed at my sister's and.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So that's why I didn't go.
Fawn Olsen, Mama Olsen's also joining us. How are you?
Good.
All right. So we started down this path a little bit before. Let's go fact or fiction with Hans Olsen.
Okay.
All right. You've already established fact. You did fire Hans from the Fudge Factory.
I absolutely did.
When did you notice that when you were making the candies that the rum was a little watered down?
Yeah. When I would need the rum.
Yeah. So kind of walk us through. So you're like, wait a minute, something's going on here? Or?
Yeah. We had a talk.
Yeah.
And it was.
Did he come right out with it, though?
No.
Something
but I
tells me
knew.
he tried to.
He kind of blamed
deeper.
it on friends.
Yeah. Okay.
That's Hans for you.
Yeah.
Do you know, Fawn, that I have gotten probably 2 or 3 phone calls, angry phone calls from Amanda, because Hans will go and suggest a movie, and it will suck, and then he will say that I suggested that you go see it, when in reality it's not.
He tells me it's you.
That's not the case. That one movie, Get Out, or there's one that I hadn't even seen it.
Really?
And he has half the lines memorized.
Yeah, and he's blaming me.
Yeah.
For all of this.
Oh, for sure. He's like, oh, well, Scotty said it's a great movie.
Oh, I know.
That's how he gets you to bite off on going.
I'm sure.
At what point did you know Hans was going to be a handful growing up? I mean, was it immediate?
Before he was born.
Really?
Yeah.
He would not go to sleep when I was going to sleep. He was doing cartwheels and trying to get a movie. I don't know what. I had to get in a hot bathtub in the middle of the night to try and get him to settle down. And it was never different when he was born.
Yeah. No, that's been pretty well established. When did you know that he was he had a considerable appetite?
When I shrunk up to nothing.
Oh, really? During pregnancy? Yeah.
They're supposed to gain weight, and she lost weight.
Yeah. That's like Rock at 3 months was drinking 8 ounces of milk and.
Yeah.
Well, and his whole birth with his hands coming first.
Oh, that's the other thing. That's a true story, right?
His daddy held his hand long before he was born because that right hand was out and this one was up at the side of his head, and so my husband was holding his hands, and then the alarms went off before his hand came out. The alarms went off that they were getting no heartbeat. So in running nurses and doctors, and I thought my baby's dead or dying, and they just started laughing their heads off. And I says, "What? He has the electrodes in his hand."
He ripped him off.
Yeah, he did.
And they says, we're glad you're raising this kid.
Yeah. So you knew immediately
Yes.
before he was born. They're like, okay, we got our work cut out for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did the baby buffalo thing come from?
His dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was interesting is Ryan's not a large
No.
person.
He's an average human being.
Yeah.
You know, and
Hans is not.
And
and
Hans has
Hans
always been different.
Ryan wore Hans's hand-me-ups. Yeah.
So when Hans would grow out of something, you'd give it to Ryan,
Exactly.
his older brother.
Yeah.
That's right.
5 years older.
5 years older. Wow. All right. Well, Amanda, as you mentioned, I'm scared for my safety, so I'm going to end this here before we say anything.
Oh, I could keep
Probably
it going.
smart.
He can't get mad at me.
That's true. That's true. You just gave both of them a killer deal on a vehicle.
That's right. I mean, that can go.
That word killer on a vehicle kind of bothers me.
Okay, I mean,
fantastic
incredible savings. Hey, while we're here, you got the 5, you got the 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of walk us through this car buying experience because you've got 2 beautiful vehicles. The 5 is one of my favorites. I know somebody who I'm very close to who drives the 90. So
really?
Yeah. So we love the Mazdas as well. What was it about the Mazdas fun that made you be like, this is great?
Like the story goes, I left home Friday to go with Amanda and told my husband I'm going to get a new battery for my watch.
Yeah.
Okay, we've talked about a car off and on because mine is 14 years old.
Wow.
And it's still running.
Yeah.
So anybody want a Honda Accord Crosstour, let me know.
No, you're keeping that.
That's slightly used. Anyway, so then we came here, and I got to drive what he had loaned to her.
The CX-5.
Yeah, and then I started looking at cars because I've been thinking about it for a while. And I drove a 6.5, but then we talked about the 50 because I had seen the 90 and ridden in a 90. But I thought I could go halfway.
Yeah.
And so he rounded up the color I wanted, and he had everything.
This guy's great, isn't he?
He is, and I got in that, and it just felt like mine.
Yeah.
It was exactly what I wanted, and I drove it, and it was the right size and had. And so I just said,
Your husband doesn't listen to the radio, does he?
Yeah, he usually does.
Okay, well then.
Hey, Clark.
I'm just going to be quiet.
Guess what?
Yeah. So when I got home, but the thing Chris Swank had told me, I says, my husband might be upset when I drive a new car home. And he says, give him 24 hours and he'll get over it. I know he will.
Yeah.
And Chris was absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's how long it took.
I love. She says, I do all the bookkeeping.
Yeah. You know where you're at.
Yeah, I deserve this car.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah,
get
you
this
do.
car.
Absolutely, you do.
I'm like, all right, well, you do your thing, girl.
Yeah. And this is your second 5, right?
Yeah, it's my second. I really like
So
down
now
back up a
you're
little
at
bit.
10.
Yeah, now I'm a 10. No, I really like the CX-5. It's great for the size and to get around town because I do a lot of driving.
Yeah.
So, no, it's a great car.
And Hands and Rock, they fit in it just fine.
Yeah, they do,
Yeah.
actually. Rock
Yeah.
can actually sit in the back. 6'7", 310.
Wow.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, see, Hands isn't the only one that can sell product for you.
You're not wrong.
No doubt. Hey, the thing is, Jake's great, though. And,
He is.
And I bought a bunch of vehicles from this guy. I know
Yeah.
you guys have well. You know, you can't ask for a better human being than this guy.
Exactly.
Well, and the funny thing is, Clark was upset about me buying because he thought some car salesman had gotten me in under his power. He didn't know the story about Jake really yet. And he was upset that somebody had taken advantage of me. And I says, honey, no, this was Tim Daly Mazda and Southtown and Jake and the family. And they, well then.
We're fine. I love it. You guys are the best. Thanks for hanging out.
For sure.
Tim Daly, Mazda Southtown's the place to be. Come on by, hang out with us. Those are the kind of savings, those are the kind of deals, and that's the kind of family you become when you come down here. Remember, you get the forever warranty and all their bells and whistles that go along with it. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Number one. Miss any part of the show? Every moment of every show is available in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your favorite podcasting platform or online at KSLSports.com. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans Olsen, Scott Gerard, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hans on vacation will be back with us coming up tomorrow. But big news over the weekend as the Salt Lake Bees will be welcoming in the service of none other than Mike Trout, who on a injury assignment will be hanging out with the Bees for a stretch of games, I believe, starting tomorrow. Joining us now, General Manager of the Salt Lake Bees, also Chief Revenue Officer, Executive Vice President of Larry H. Miller Sports, Ty Wardle, kind enough to hang out with us. Ty, how you doing, man?
Good. Thanks, Scotty. Thanks for having me on. It's an exciting week for sure on the Bees end, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we want to make sure that people know exactly what's going on and get people out to those games because it's going to be, look, I remember going out and seeing Mike Trout when he was coming up through the ranks, and I remember talking to Mark Amicone, who told me before the season, you're going to want to get to a couple of games and watch this guy because he's not going to be with us for very long. Before he gets called up. And certainly we've seen the career that he's had at the major league level. But when you find out news that he's going to be on assignment with you, I got to imagine there's a few cartwheels in that building.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun prepping for something like this. I mean, this doesn't happen very often. I mean, we can't probably in the entire existence of the Bees organization for the last 30 years, we haven't had someone of this caliber with us before. We've had other big leaguers rehab with us, but to have a 3-time MVP with us within the organization, there's a lot of fun and prep behind the scenes that goes into it. So we're excited.
What do you do as an organization to try to prepare for something like this? And, obviously you want to make sure that, that it is business as usual, but also celebrate the fact that this is kind of a monumental occasion.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of the prep behind the scenes, making sure that we have all the guest services staff ready for the additional crowds and excitement that we'll feel. We'll make sure that we're prepped on the food and beverage side to make sure that we're handling all the crowds and everything that are going to be a part of that. The front office as well, just making sure that we coordinate the movements of a player like him within the facility, and that's from when he parks into when he's where he's at inside the building to when and how he leaves as well. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that is happening that we want to make sure that goes very smoothly, that he enjoys his time here in Salt Lake, that it's a great experience for him, and we hope to keep him for as long as we can. We know it might be short-lived, but we love for him to have a great experience here in Salt Lake, so he wants to stay as long as he can.
Have they given you any indication on how long he might be here?
Yeah, that's day by day. It just depends on how he feels when he's here and taking swings and at bats. And so if he feels good, and we could lose him and obviously back up to the Angels. But if he feels like he needs some more swings at bat just to get timing and everything down, he'll stick with us. And so no indication. It's day by day. I think we're for sure locked in for tomorrow. And hopefully for a couple other games throughout this week, but they could call us at any moment and say he's making a change. So just prepping for all that.
So just enjoy it while you can, folks. And
exactly. It might be one day.
Go get those tickets. Go to slbs.com right now. That's slbs.com. Get your tickets and enjoy what should be just a remarkable opportunity to see one of the best to ever play the game. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, this guy is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's just incredible. What does it mean? And maybe this isn't a fair question to ask, but when you're around this team a little bit, you know these players. They're all youngsters trying to carve out a role for themselves at the major league level in some way, shape, or form. To be around a guy like that, what does that do for a locker room, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think just speaking contextually to when you're around someone that is that great at their craft, you have to assume it's inspirational to some degree. And when you can have him in a locker room, with 20-plus AAA players, hopefully it just rubs off on them on like his approach to the game, his mentality, things that he does to prep. and just kind of his demeanor and mindset as you approach what you're doing, obviously in this sense being baseball. So hopefully it's inspirational to them just to kind of see how it gets done in the big leagues. And hopefully it rubs off on them to kind of inspire them to kind of do what it takes to get to the next level. So we want them all to be successful. And so having him around in that setting, that hopefully they're just absorbing it, enjoying it, and probably not going to happen again for a while. So, but yeah.
What's the how's the vibe been this year with your squad?
Great. Yeah, our manager KJ is doing a phenomenal job with the team. Everyone's in good spirits. In the second half of the season, we're just a couple games outside of first place, and so the team's doing a good job. I think they're swinging the bat well, they're scoring well, and everything behind the scenes as well. Just in Smith's Ballpark with everything that we're doing, we're really excited for the rest of the season. A lot of fun nights ahead of us, a lot of fun theme nights, fireworks, drone shows, that sort of thing, just to make sure the fan experience is great. And also a lot of prep and looking forward to things that we'll enjoy out in Daybreak at Daybreak Field at America First Square. So a lot of prep into that as well.
Has it been kind of a, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the right word to use here, maybe a bittersweet year, knowing that this is your last year at Smith's Ballpark, knowing that you're going to Daybreak? I mean, is it every time you go to the ballpark, it's like, well, this is one last day we're here. I mean, what's that? Is it? I got to imagine it's kind of surreal knowing that.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, my preferred seat at that Smith's Ballpark is out there on the berm with my kids. And so when you look up at those mountains and kind of look at the setting of how neat a ballpark is and how cool the setting is, but we're moving on to something else. It's a little surreal. It's a little, you want to absorb it and take it in, but we're hopefully moving on to something that we're really excited about and what we're building out there. So yeah, it's a little bittersweet to say goodbye to a ballpark like that, but we have something cool coming that we're really excited about as well.
So there have been some pictures posted on social media over the last week or so on the progress. Kind of give us the update from your perspective on how things are going out in Daybreak.
Yeah, I was out there last week doing a tour, and it looks incredible. I mean, I think when people see it for the first time or come and tour the ballpark when they get a chance, they'll see that we have what feels like a major league product in that sort of in the city of South Jordan. And so some of the amenities, the seats, the premium seats and experiences, as well as the seating types to accommodate everyone from all walks of life, and seats on the berm and all that will still be a part of what we're doing out there. So I was in those. I was back in some of our suite, the product underneath or on the field suites that are on the field level that will be closer to the catcher than the pitcher will in proximity, and a really cool experience in that setting. And so we have some really cool things that are coming that I know everyone will be excited about when they see it. And so can't wait to show more pictures and get it out there.
What ultimately, when you build a stadium like that in this day and age of sports, where, back, 20 years ago, it was about trying to cram as many butts into a stadium as possible. Now It feels like it's more about the fan experience. And I got to imagine that's been your point of emphasis with this one. Yeah,
without a doubt. That's top of mind for sure, is to make sure that anyone that is in our building, doesn't matter how much money they're spending or who they are, is that when they're a part of Daybreak Field at America First Square and enjoying that, like it's top of mind that it has to be a phenomenal experience from beginning to end. And so I'm a broken record when it comes to like making sure that everyone feels the magic that we want to create out there, that they love the food and beverage experience, that they feel welcomed with the guest experience that's happening out there. It's just top of mind. That's how we approach it. And and when you talk about the venue size, when we're only going to have about 8,000 seats out there compared to our 14,000 right now, the experience of it all and enjoying AAA baseball during a summer is what we want to bring to Utah, and hopefully prepping for anything that could be down the road in the future. We want to make sure it's a big league experience in a minor league ballpark right now, so we're really excited.
For somebody out there that was like, well, I kind of enjoyed the downtown experience, and they think Daybreak, they think it takes, 2.5 hours to get out there if you're a downtown elitist. I'll admit, I was part of me was part of that camp for a bit until I had breakfast with Brian Dever and you a little bit ago, or about a month or two ago, and you're like, no, it's just down the road from here. And so I drove it just to check out, what it would be. And it's not like, for everybody out there, suck it up a little bit. It's not that bad. It's actually pretty easy to get to.
It is. I was at a golf tournament for my little boy this morning at Glenmore Golf Course. So we're just a little south of Glenmore Golf Course for the people that love that place out there. And so it's not that bad. I mean, we're going to have incredible traffic pattern or support from UDOT and the traffic systems that will be out there with the Trax line, with Mountain View Corridor. And hopefully, speaking to the size of the facility, we're not going to have 14,000 people out there coming to a game. It's going to be half the size of what we're currently dealing with. And so hopefully the traffic congestion doesn't feel like what people think it's going to feel like. And no, we're not as far out there as people think. It's located right there in the heart of the Daybreak community, and we're really excited about kind of the systems around it that will make it easier to get to than people might think it is.
What's your timeline? Do you anticipate that this thing will be up and ready to go by the start of next season? You don't anticipate any hiccups there?
Yeah, not at this point, no. But we're dealing with great summer weather, so it's easy to do construction out there with the kind of temperatures that we're dealing with. So, but we feel confident about going into the spring of next year and April of next year that we feel on time, ready to go. And construction seems like it's doing really, really well. So nothing would lead us to believe that it should be anything outside of April.
Oh, that's awesome. Ty Wardle joining us, General Manager of the Salt Lake Bees, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Big League Monday as we kind of count you down to all kinds of great stuff. And again, I know that there are things you can probably comment on and things you can't comment on, so feel free to chime in with what you can and also with what you can't. But the Tampa Bay Rays got essentially approval from the city council in St. Petersburg on building a new stadium. There were a couple things that I know needed to be accomplished before baseball could move on to expansion topics. Number one was get Oakland settled in and their situation. It looks like they're full speed ahead in Vegas. And then the stadium situation with the Rays, and it appears that has been somewhat resolved at this point. Are we feeling confident that maybe now expansion can be a topic of conversation at the Major League Baseball level with those two hurdles seemingly crossed?
Yeah, I guess with what's been said publicly from the commissioners that they're looking to get everything fixed in Tampa Bay and with the Athletics before they proceed. So we haven't received any information. Everything that we're doing is just a prep on our end in case if and when it does happen. And so we feel well positioned. We feel like we're working well with the state to make sure that we are in a good spot. So if that were to happen, that we can move quickly. So I think everything's moving forward. I don't have any magic answer to that. I wish we had some intel that we could share in the setting, but we're prepped on our end. Is when they hit go, that expansion's happening, that we feel well positioned to make sure it's Salt Lake over anywhere else, and so we feel good about it.
You know, and that's the one thing I think that you and Steve and then local officials should deserve a lot of credit for is you don't know when, Major League Baseball will say, hey, guess what? We're ready, right. Get your bids in, stuff like that. But when I read about other cities, and I won't point out anybody in particular, but there's always a little bit of but. Like, okay, there's this city and, they want a team, but they don't have the land. Or there's this city and they want a team, but ownership really isn't in place or financing or whatever the case is. There's really no stone left unturned for you guys in terms of location, ownership, financing, everything else. Like, as you mentioned, as soon as Major League Baseball said, get your bids in, we're ready to go, and we're ready to look at some cities, there's really nothing that you guys haven't prepared for, correct?
Yeah, I think we're doing our best to make sure that those boxes are checked, and credit to the Larry H. Miller Company and the executive team with Steve Starks, Amanda Covington, and Michelle Smith, and everything that they're doing to make sure that we're in a place with the state, with the land, with ownership, with baseball, that questions that need to be asked. It's just Salt Lake's ready. And so it's unprecedented, the kind of support that we've got from the state and kind of the maneuvering that we've done on our end to make sure that's the case. We're just waiting on the nod. We're hoping to get the first pitch opportunity when it comes to which cities are ready. And so all the studies and background work that we've done on the economy and is Utah ready and Salt Lake ready for a Major League Baseball team, to us it's a resounding yes. Hopefully Major League Baseball feels that when they actually give the nod that it's happening. So we feel like we're well positioned.
So Mike Trout, just to revisit, Mike Trout tomorrow. Yep. You got fireworks coming up on Wednesday with the 24th. All kinds of great opportunities to get down to the ballpark.
Yep. We'd love to have anyone there. It's going to be a cool experience having him there, obviously, this week. But just come down and be a part of the fun of AAA baseball at the ballpark to get some of these last bees in the summer before we move. But we're really excited for this week and what's ahead.
I'm telling you, there's nothing better on a night, summer night, going down, grabbing yourself a dog, a beverage, hanging out, watching a little AAA baseball. You guys do such a tremendous job. Ty, we appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, come hang out with me on the berm. Enjoy a dog with me.
There you go.
I'll be there.
And Ty's not messing around. You're a man of the people. You'd be more than happy to sit back and knock back a dog or two and hang out and chat with anybody, right?
Yeah, me and you, Scotty. We'll hang out there and hang out with anyone for sure.
Let's do it. I love it, man.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ty. Ty Wardle, General Manager, Salt Lake Bees, Executive Vice President as well, and Chief Revenue Officer. Really good dude. And tell you what, things are in motion, folks. Try to get that Major League Baseball team here in Salt Lake. All right, we are live hanging out at Tim Daly Mazda Southtown. We just had Hans' wife. We had Hans' mom. They both picked up a couple of vehicles earlier today. And look, they're not doing it just because, just because they had to. These are great vehicles, and you guys don't mess around, man. Another 5, another 50. I love the 5. I know somebody who drives a 90. I mean, these are great vehicles that you're moving right now.
Yep, we certainly are, and we have got some great incentives and rebates from the factory, some great rates. So we're doing everything we can to move everything from the Mazda 3s all the way up to the new 70 and the new 90.
What really sets Mazda apart, in your opinion?
I think Mazda spent a lot of time in their quality of craftsmanship. I mean, their reliability, quality materials. It's just a fantastic product that they put on the road.
Well, the thing that really jumps out to me is, and I give Jake. We talk about this all the time. When he called me and said that he was coming here, I was like, Mazda, huh? Interesting, because Mazda wasn't top of mind at that point. I remember the old Zoom commercials back in the day, but that's about it. And I had a vehicle that I was driving at the time that got beat up, and he said, well, while that's getting fixed, why don't you drive a 5? And so I came down, and he put me in a 5 for a few weeks while that was getting fixed, and I was like, holy smokes, this is a great vehicle. This thing is incredible. It gets up and goes. When you get that thing on an on-ramp and you hit the foot on the pedal, it flies. And I just couldn't find anything that I didn't love about it. And that's the 5. I mean, then you got the 50s, the 70s, the 90s. I mean, you got everything here ready to go.
Yeah, there's definitely a vehicle for everybody. All the way, once again, going to like the Mazda 3 hatch, the small little tiny car, or going all the way up to something that has 3 rows to fit the entire family. And we have plug-in hybrids as well.
Is Tim getting rid of that forever warranty anytime soon?
No, there's no talks in that going away anytime soon.
I still can't believe you guys are doing that.
Yep. So you definitely benefit from that for as long as you own the vehicle. The powertrain is covered.
Yeah. I mean, so the big ones, transmission, engine goes out after 10 years and 200,000 miles. Guess what? Swing it by here and it's taken care of.
Absolutely still covered. And then we've got some additional warranties that we can do with that to complement the powertrain warranty.
It's just amazing what you guys – but here's the other element to this as well. You as a sales staff, there isn't anything you guys haven't seen or dealt with, whether it's upside down, credit, whatever. Everybody's got a story. You don't judge. You're just like, hey, look, let's figure it out. Let's get you in a vehicle that you can afford to drive and you're going to love to drive.
Yep, we would love to see anybody and everybody who wants to come down, and we don't want to see them driving away in a new Mazda.
Yeah. Now, I tell you what, there's so many lease options. There's low financing options, 0% on some of these models. I mean, just come on. You got to get down here and check it out. Appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out.
Yep, thanks.
Tim Daly Mazda Southtown right here on Auto Mall Drive. Real easy to find. We'll be here until 3 o'clock. The savings continue throughout the end of the month as well. Come on, it's the end of the month, which means you get to take advantage of some great savings. It's all right here at Tim Daly Mazda Southtown, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Take the Zone with you wherever you go. Download the KSL Sports app to get live streaming of your favorite shows.
Downloading.
Download the latest podcasts and get all the latest breaking news on the teams you can't live without. Everything you need delivered right to your phone.
Let's go get them where we can get them.
Just search KSL Sports on your app store of choice. Download it now. The KSL Sports app, presented by University of Utah Health. You're locked on to Hans Olsen and Scotty G. That's right. Yeah! On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Hope everybody's having a tremendous day. Hope you are ready to go to kick off another week. Hey, it's a holiday week. You got the 24th coming up on Wednesday. Hopefully you get a day off, and it's a 4-day work week for you. Hans is off today. He'll be back with us coming up tomorrow. Don't worry. We'll be fine. If you missed his wife and his mom, who joined us earlier in the program, you missed out. Even though Lloyd, I think we took it pretty easy on him. That could have been a lot worse. Had that been I was a little bit nervous. Had it been my brother or my sister and my mom,
that's
it
not
would have
true.
You guys would have made it far worse.
That's
if
not true.
If he comes back and he's grumpy about that, then I'm going to be upset, because if he's going to be upset about that, then I should have at least made it count a little bit better, because I thought we were pretty easy on him. All right, let's get to it. Bob Casper is going to join us coming up here in just a second, but right now let's get to number 29 in our top 60 and 60.
This is the top 60 and 60. As the zone counts you down to the start of the 2024 college football season. And now it's time for today's selection, as voted on by the local sports media and you, the fans. 30 down, 30 to go. As we reach the midway point of the countdown, we focus on a player who made his mark as a wide receiver during his career at BYU, but is now asked to have a different role in 2024 as he makes the shift to tight end. Coming in at number 29 from Brigham Young University, 6'4", 240-pound tight end, Keanu Hill. Brigham Young University head coach Kalani Sitake.
Keanu Hill, great team player, willing to do whatever he can to help the team. One of our best blockers. People don't realize that he's the guy that helps spring big plays. Willing to do whatever he can to help the team, hence moving to tight end, gaining weight, and now is walking around at 250 pounds really comfortably.
This is the top 60 and 60, presented by 5 Star Painting on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, making the shift from wide receiver to tight end and being told to put on some extra pounds, that never hurts when they're like, hey, look, I know you've been playing around 205, 210, but we're going to need you at 240, 250. Like, okay, let's hit up that training table. Let's go. Keanu Hill checking in at number 29. A little high, I'd say, for Keanu Hill. I would have put him a little bit lower than that. Hans definitely would have put him a little bit lower than that. We'll get Hans' reaction on that coming up tomorrow. But Keanu Hill checking in at number 29. Remember, go to KSLSports.com. You got the full list of your top 60 and 60 with all the audio and everything that goes along with it. Again, big thanks to 5 Star Painting, being your title sponsor of the top 60 and 60 for the second consecutive year. All right, with that, let's talk a little British Open. It's Bob Casper.
This Uinta Golf Open Championship update is brought to you by Mountain Land Supply, Zions Bank, Black Desert Resort, Hoops Vision, and Siegfried and Jensen. And now, Real Golf Radio's Bob Casper.
All right, Bob Casper, kind enough to join us. Xander Schauffele picks up another major with the British Championship. At what point did you feel pretty comfortable that Schauffele was going to be able to walk away with this thing, Bob?
Well, I think it started on the back nine when he birdied the 11th hole, and then ended up making birdie at 13 and 14 as well. And then it was a matter of, can he convert and make birdie again on 16? And then it was Katie bar the door, so to speak, if he hits the green on 17 and he hits the green on 18. So, but, I think what happened is, everybody was jockeying for position in the front nine. And then as soon as they got to the back nine, then everybody started falling back when Xander started pushing forward. He put the pedal down, and he didn't let anything affect him. He even said in his press conference he felt a calm on the back nine and was able to take a lot from what he did in the PGA Championship when he won and turned that into the victory yesterday. He said he got on the 18th green and he told his caddy, Austin, who was a really, really good friend, like his best friend. He played college golf with him at San Diego State. But he told Austin, he said, man, he said, I'm feeling really calm. And his caddy said, I'm not feeling calm. He said, I felt like I was going to throw up on the 18th tee. So Xander Schauffele played some phenomenal golf and is our champion golfer of the year.
So, and certainly well-deserved. There's no doubt about it. The 65, when I'm just looking down, there were, I think the next best score near the top of the leaderboard was Rose, who had a 67. But to shoot a 65 on that final round, and I don't know, do you think he had a Tiger effect where everybody saw what he was doing and like, oh, geez, you can't compete with that? Or was just everybody else having a rough day out there?
I think everybody else might have tightened up a little bit. The Open Championship is a huge major championship. It's basically the World Championship outside of the United States. But I think he, I just think the calmness that he said about him, allowing him to shoot that 65. Oh, and only two guys have shot a 65 in a final round to win a major championship. Jack Nicklaus did it at Baltusrol and again and at the Masters. Now he's done it at the PGA Championship and the Open Championship in the same year. So having said that, I just think everybody might have tightened up a little bit. And like I said, they were jockeying for position, but he kind of jumped out in front of everybody and put the pedal down.
Yeah, really impressive to see that. The interesting thing is, you look at Shane Lowry, who just looked like he was on his way to really taking control of this thing, and then shoots a 77 on Saturday. He responded with a nice 68 to finish in sixth place and, bring home a decent check at that point. But, boy, I tell you what, going into Saturday, you thought this was his to lose, and what happened to him on that Saturday round?
Well, we talked about this before. The wrong side of the draw. All the guys that shot really good scores got out earlier in the day. And then the weather came in with the wind and the rain, and then those guys that were late were at the disadvantage. So everything kind of leveled out and evened out as far as the 3 rounds were concerned. But, yeah, he had difficulty in the weather conditions, even though he's grown up playing these type of golf courses, links-style golf courses, all throughout his career and when he was a junior and that kind of thing. But, some guys deal with it better than others, and unfortunately he just had a tough day. And a lot of guys had a tough day in that third round. When the leading score backs all the way up to 4 under par, it's a pretty crazy move.
Bob Caspe joining us right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You hear him every Saturday morning with Brian Taylor on Real Golf Radio. Tell you what, you can't ask for more consistency than Scotty Scheffler. 70, 70, 71, 72, ends up tied for 7th. But I think we're all a little surprised when he's not more in competition. But you just never really saw that big moment from him this tournament. And maybe it's not fair to look at him and say that's a disappointment. But, when he has a double, a couple doubles on that final round, you're like, come on, this isn't Scotty-like. Are we holding him too high of a standard right now?
No, I don't think so. One of the things that Scotty chose not to do is play the week before the Open Championship, or to come over early enough before the Open Championship to, first of all, get used to the conditions, get used to speed of greens being slower, and get used to the time change, okay? There's from where he lives in Dallas to England is a 6-hour time difference. We're on a 7-hour time difference. So that takes a little while for your body to get used to. Now, Tiger, when Tiger was winning at a ferocious clip and winning multiple Open Championships, Tiger would go over 3 or 4 days prior. He wouldn't necessarily play like the Scottish Open or anything like that, but he'd go over 3 or 4 days prior, play link-style golf, get used to things so that when the week started, he was feeling better. Scotty had to learn things at a fast pace. He'd never played this golf course before. And even though he has a caddy that has been around it many, many times, it looked like he was frustrated all week to me. He'd hit a shot, drop a club. He'd hit something into the rough, hit something in the deep bunkers. He just didn't look as on top of his game as he has in the past. And then he gave up 3 strokes around putting. And because of the slow greens, it was more difficult for him. He's used to much quicker greens and taking advantage of those quicker greens where you really have to bang the ball on these slower greens at an Open Championship to have a chance for the ball to go in the hole.
It's interesting as a golfer, we always hear, how hard it is when the greens are fast. We don't talk about when greens are slow. That can also play mind games with guys, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's a big deal. When you're putting on greens that are around 13 and a half week after week after week, all you have to do is basically get the ball started. Some uphill putts you gotta hit a little bit firmer, but get the ball started and they'll roll on his line and go to the hole. And on the PGA Tour, they're always trying to die the ball around the hole. When you play in the British Isles, because the greens are slower, about 10 and 10 and a half, that's 3 feet shorter on a putt of any distance, like a 10-foot putt or a 12-foot putt or a 14-foot putt. 3 feet shorter. Now you got to hit the ball and try to get it to go past the hole, a good foot and a half, and a lot of guys are coming up short. And because of that, they're used to playing those faster greens and the shorter greens, the guys that have the ability to settle into those slower greens so they don't come up short all the time are the guys that are going to score better.
Is there, if you were Bob Casper, the golfer, are there greens you prefer, slower or faster? What would you prefer in terms of what you feel comfortable with?
Well, I think slower greens are definitely more difficult, something that you have to get used to, and that's why I'm saying you need to get there 3 or 4 days in advance to start practicing and putting on those slower greens. But faster greens are definitely easier to putt, whether it's uphill or downhill. A faster green, all you have to do is get it started on line going downhill, and it has better chance to go in. That's even what Lee Trevino said. But uphill, it's a lot easier to make putts on those faster greens as well.
What talk about Tony's second round, missed the cut. I shot that second round 81. Things really got away from him there on Friday. Yeah. What did you see there?
Yeah, okay. So again, wrong side of the draw. Okay, so he was playing in the worst conditions that afternoon in the second round. Hit a couple errant shots, one on the 9th hole, hit it in the gorse, had to take an unplayable lie and made a triple bogey. Or a lost ball. He had to take a lost ball because he went back to the tee to hit his second shot, his second drive. So he hit it in the gorse, ends up making a triple bogey. Then he gets on the 12th hole, hits it in the gorse, loses his ball again, ends up making a quadruple bogey. So he got on the wrong side. He got on the wrong side of the draw, and because of that, it becomes a lot more difficult. You've got to really rein in your shots and try to keep things out of, where it's out of control, where you're trying to hit it as hard as you can or anything like that. Tony, this is an anomaly for Tony. He's been playing some great golf, some great finishes. He's been moving up the world rankings, moving up the FedEx Cup. I think Tony is going to have a couple weeks off, and then they're going to start going into the playoffs. And so he'll have a couple of those playoffs, and then hopefully the Tour Championship, and he'll be right back on track again for those 3.
I don't know if you play poker, but Lloyd and I'll play every now and then. And when you lose a couple rounds and you get upset, and then you really start to force the action that says the old adage is you're playing on tilt. Is that easy to do in golf when maybe you have 1 or 2 holes go against you and you're like, I got to get it back, and then you start playing on tilt, and then things really get away from you at that point? Is that pretty common, especially even at the professional level?
Yeah, especially when especially since it's an individual sport, there isn't really anybody there to have your back and take control of stuff. Yes, you do play on tilt. You do try to push and get more aggressive and try to push the issue and that kind of thing. And it can either go one of two ways. You either turn things around or you make it worse. And so, yeah, absolutely, Scotty, that's what happens. And for the most part, when that happens, things have a tendency to get worse.
Yeah, usually you're in trouble at that point. Yeah, and it's tough to do. But I think it's kind of, I don't know, like it stinks for Tony or whoever, but I think it's also kind of good to see that even professionals can get stuck in that, because your weekend golfer who's playing for a couple quarters a hole with their buddy and things get away from him. Look, we're all human. It can happen to the best of us.
Yeah, and in professional golf and in major championship golf, and especially on a course like this with the conditions and everything, patience is a virtue. And so you're trying to make a bunch of pars and if you try to push the issue to make more birdies, then it jumps up and bites you, whether it's in the gorse, whether it's in the rough, or whether it's in those really, really deep bunkers off the tee that you can't get the ball to the green.
All right, so majors are over, but kind of give us the rest of the schedule and what we're looking at.
9 months, Scotty. We got 9 months before the next one. Okay, so we've got an event this week back here in the U.S. Then we've got the Olympics, then a week off, and then the playoffs, which there'll be two that will start at the top 70 in the FedEx Cup. We'll get into the first playoff event. The top 50 after the first playoff event will get into the second, and then the top 30 will get into the third. Now, everybody that makes it to that second playoff event is guaranteed for the signature events the following season. And then after that, we've got President's Cup and coming up in September and that kind of thing. But then we start back up with events in the FedEx Fall that will help guys make sure they're in the top 20, 25 to keep their card. And one of those is the Black Desert Resort event down in St. George, which I'm really looking forward to in October.
How much are guys that are participating looking forward to being in the Olympics?
Oh, I think they're really looking forward. You're talking about Scotty and Xander, and then Wyndham Clark and Colin Morikawa. All those guys want to represent their country and play in that event. We've got a defending champion in Xander that won in Tokyo and has the gold medal, and so he's going to try and defend. And this time he's got the PGA Championship and the Open Championship on his resume to help boost him along. So it'll be fun to see. They're all playing on a golf course they've played before in Paris, and they played the Ryder Cup there. And although they got beat, they're gonna be able to know what the golf course or what to expect from the golf course. And so I think the U.S. squad, because they've got 4 players, have a pretty good chance of bringing back medals again.
What's the and I should know this, and I apologize, but what's the format? What's the scoring format on this thing, or the playing format?
Okay, so the playing format in it's just straight stroke play.
Okay.
It's nothing different than that. It's all straight stroke play, but there are vibes going around that by the time it gets to Los Angeles, that there could be a men's and women's combined event. So you would have your individual events and then a combined event with men and women as well. I would like to see kind of a format also where it's kind of like a match play event, so to where you can whittle it down to the final champion. So, but to have golf get back in the Olympics, 8 years ago or something like that, I think it's awesome.
So this is an individual event. This isn't a team event.
No, it's not a team event. They are They are on the team, just like just like sprinters or whatever.
Yeah.
It's an individual gold medal. It's the same thing with golf.
Okay, all right, good to know. Well, all right. So with that said, who would be your odds-on favorite to win a gold medal?
Well, I think you got to look at the number one and number two players in the world, and that's Scotty and Xander. But then you've got Rahm, and you know, for Spain, and you've got Rory for Ireland, and there's going to be a lot of good players that are going to have a chance to win a gold medal or medal, you know, whether it's silver or bronze as well.
Bob, you're the best, man. We appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with us.
You got it, buddy. Take care.
There he is, the great Bob Caspe, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Take a break, come back, and we will get to another edition of Whole World News straight ahead. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
Cheap bangs! Cheap bangs!
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Woo! Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Looking for the latest on the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, and Aggies? Yeah! We've got you covered. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Apologies for the little equipment snafu, but we're back here at Tim Daly Mazda Southtown. I want you to come by, test drive one of these vehicles. That's all I ask, is that you test drive, because I'm telling you what, man, you get one of these vehicles and you're loving life right now. They're just incredible vehicles. If you've not driven a Mazda, you got to check them out.
Absolutely. They're a fun car to drive. If you've never driven or experienced a Mazda, I say please come down. We'd love to put you in one of these seats and have you drive a model that works for you, and it's a great experience.
Tell me about your experience. Like when you came over here and started working for Jake and part of the Mazda brand, it probably didn't take long for you to realize you had something special on your hands.
For sure. Mazda is not something that I ever experienced before. Don't have anybody in my family at the time that had owned a Mazda. Now we've got several, obviously, after a year and a half of being here. But, it was not something that was ever on the radar. I think Mazda is kind of something that that really goes under everybody's radar, because they've really changed their branding over the last several years, and they're competing with some of the really reliable manufacturers.
Well, I think that's probably, and that's why I love coming down here and talking about this, because I think that's probably one of the biggest things you guys are trying to overcome is not necessarily a misconception, but just an overall awareness of the Mazda brand.
Correct.
Because if you haven't driven it or been around it, I don't think you can really truly appreciate how great these vehicles are.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely correct. And we are switching lots of people that have been loyal other brands for lifetime. That are switching to Mazda and saying that they're lifelong Mazda people now.
You sell a lot of the 5s. I know you sell a lot of the 50s.
We do, correct.
Give me the difference between those two, because I love the 5. I haven't driven the 50.
Yeah. The biggest difference is the 50 is a little more sporty, a little more roomy. The suspension's a little bit different, but the driving experience is about the same. It just depends on what you need as far as space is really what it comes down to.
You got the new 70 that's got like a third row to it, too. You can have an option of that or just the extra cargo space, correct?
So just the extra cargo space, correct. The difference
so it doesn't have the third row?
No. So the difference between the 70 and the 90 is the third row. So the 90's got the third row. If you go to the 70, then you don't get the third row, but you get the additional cargo space, and there's some additional cargo compartments as well that you get with it.
So if you're really packing a lot of stuff around, 70 is probably your ride.
Yep, that's a great, absolutely.
And that's available in the hybrid, too.
That is correct, yes.
So I know somebody I'm close to that drives the 90, and shocked at the gas mileage on that thing, and and the amount of money that you'll save at the pump with just the hybrid. Now, a lot of people are a little nervous about the electric because they're like, well, how long can I go on a charge? Well, here with the hybrid, you can go straight gas and be just fine. Or when you're driving around town, you're getting 50, 60, 70 miles a gallon.
That's correct. Yep. So the plug-in hybrid is what it is. It does give you that additional fuel economy. So you can get somewhere around 56, 58 miles to the gallon.
It just saves you a ton of money. It's really incredible. So bottom line here, moral of the story is you're going to find a vehicle that's going to match whatever you need that vehicle to do. There's a lot of great options. You've got a huge selection of vehicles down here. So the colors, Hans' mom was talking about she wanted this, she wanted the turbo, and she wanted this color. And you're like, boom, it's right over there.
That's correct. Yep. We've got whatever you desire, color, styling, features, seating. We've got it all.
Let's do it, man. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, Hans.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. As we are live again, Tim Dahle, Mazda Southtown on Automall Drive, ready to hook you up with whatever you want. Frank Schwab's going to join us coming up here in just a moment. In fact, Frank joins us right now from Yahoo Sports, NFL and sports betting for Yahoo Sports, and one of the best when it comes down to breaking the NFL. Frank, how you doing, man? Good to catch up with you again.
Hey, what's going on?
Not much. It's kind of the calm before the storm. Training camp starting to kick off this week. You fired up to get this thing going for another year?
Yeah, it's one of those maybe love-hate things where I know it's about to get really busy work-wise, but this season is just – I'm excited for this season. I think there's just so many cool storylines. All these rookie quarterbacks coming in and C.J. Stroud trying to – there's just so many great storylines that I'm more fired up for this season than I have been in the past few. And I'm always excited, but it just is a little bit extra juice for this season.
So let's start with the C.J. Stroud thing. Look, we all thought he was going to be at least I thought he was going to be a pretty good quarterback. I never imagined a million years thought he'd be that good in year number one. What are the expectations for him in year number two?
And that's the thing. I worry we're getting too excited about the Texans and C.J. Stroud. When a team comes from literally out of nowhere, we all expected them to be one of the three worst teams in the NFL, right? Yeah. And when they come from those depths to being where they were, and C.J. Stroud goes from being a guy who was debatable prospect to literally the best rookie season I've ever seen from a quarterback, you worry there's going to be a little bit of a pullback. As I talked about, I wrote the Texans preview, posted it today. The term sophomore slump exists for a reason. It does happen. But on the other hand, you look at how good and how advanced C.J. Stroud was. Nothing he did is not repeatable. It wasn't like they had training wheels on the offense. I'm not saying this to downgrade RG3's rookie year, but RG3's rookie year was more of we're going to have this really, really kind of basic offense that a rookie can run and do really well, and he did. He was great. Stroud was more this guy's playing like a 10-year veteran.
Yeah.
It just blew me away, and so when I sit here and say, oh, yeah, maybe some regression's coming for Stroud and the Texans, I also look at it and say, well, why? Nothing he did was fluky. It was really, really good. So I'm kind of a little cautious on the Texans, a little conservative on them and what I'm going to be predicting them to do this year. But I also realize that C.J. Stroud throws for 5,000 yards, wins MVP this season. Yep, okay. I wouldn't be surprised at all. He was that good as a rookie that I don't think that we could put any expectations on his ceiling for this year. He can be best quarterback in the NFL if he hits his absolute peak.
So we've had you on the show a lot, and we talk about Broncos. I always get grief from listeners because I lead you into a Broncos conversation. But I know that you're kind of stationed in that area, and you kind of keep vibes on that. I want to go back in time a little bit. Did the Broncos want DeMeco Ryans ahead of Sean Payton, or was Sean Payton their guy all along? And how much credit should DeMeco Ryans get for what Houston did last year?
Oh, a ton of credit for one. But I think that the Broncos just had a messy its coaching search. As I remember, DeMeco was always locked in on the Texans. There was never – I don't get the sense – as I remember it, maybe I'm misremembering because it was a year and a half ago, but as I remember it, everybody kind of knew DeMeco was going to the Texans, and that's how it worked out. He took, I think, a Giants interview maybe. If that was the same, no, it wasn't Giants. It was somebody else he took an interview with, and it was like, yeah, that he's just going to the Texans because, as I've written about, if you think about the Texans and them getting lucky, and look, every team needs fortune. I don't say this in a bad way. The Patriots needed Tom Brady to slip to 199 for them to make that work, right? But if you think about the Panthers easily could have taken Stroud number one, right? That's a big piece of what they did, and also. DeMeco Ryans comes available when they have a coaching opening, and had the New York Giants drafted DeMeco Ryans, the linebacker, out of college, late in the first round, maybe DeMeco Ryans never wants to go to the Texans. There was no other reason for him to go to Houston, other than he had really good feelings about his playing days there. He was kind of a legend there. He really, really good linebacker for the franchise. And if he doesn't have that playing career in Houston, I think he would look at this situation and say, this is the most toxic situation in the NFL. I'm not taking that job. But he didn't. He wanted to go to the Texans because he really loved Houston. They end up with a A-plus hire at head coach. I think I loved him when he was 49ers coordinator. Love him now, a year into his Texans career. Deserves a ton of credit for what they did. And you just think, if you're a fan of any team, the Broncos or whoever, if you just get lucky with a couple of things in your rebuild, like, you know, I mean, the Texans could be sitting there right now with a much worse head coach and Bryce Young as their quarterback. That's a very reasonable situation. But they hit a few green lights, and here the Texans are. We're talking about them not just being contenders in the AFC South, but being Super Bowl contenders.
So Frank Schwab joining us right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Week 1 starter in Denver, who is it? And Week 17 starter in Denver, who do you think it is?
I can't imagine the answer to both questions. Isn't Bo Nix? If Bo Nix is not the starter, especially by Week 17, if he's not the starter by Week 17, something's going really wrong. And why wouldn't he be the starter Week 1? The reason you draft a Bo Nix is because he just set the record, blew away the record, it's never going to be broken, for starts by a college quarterback. Whatever that number ended up being, 80-something, or what? It was something crazy. How many games he started his college career with the COVID year and all that. That's why he's not a guy you bring along slowly. He's a guy who should be ready-made. Right now, your quarterback room is Jared Stidham and Zach Wilson, so nothing is standing in his way. He is the best quarterback on the roster right now. What's the holdup? And in another way, the Broncos, I mean, if they're as bad as I think they're going to be, and I think most people think they're going to be bad, they got to figure out pretty quickly, is this our guy or not? Because you might go into the 2025 draft with a chance to draft Carson Beck, the kid out of Georgia, let's say, for one name. You need to know, can Bo Nix be our guy or not? And you need to get as good of a look at him as you can, well, realizing he's a rookie and he's going to have his lumps and all that kind of stuff. But I'd throw him right into the fire. There's no reason to wait on a guy like that. His polish was one of the reasons they drafted him where they did. And I think that if he's not starting Week 1 and if he's not starting Week 17, something's really gone amiss. And for different reasons, for different different stories you could tell yourself there. But, yeah, I think he needs to be our starter all season because what's the holdup otherwise? Why would you voluntarily start Jared Stidham over him?
Well, and the name you haven't brought up, it's either, Stidham. You haven't brought up Zach Wilson as a potential starter. And I was at Big 12 and Mountain West Conference Media Days a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to some media members out of Denver, and they're like, hey, look, what we saw to Zach in New York is a lot of what we've seen in OTAs and mini camps this year in Denver. It's just he is who he is at this point, and who knows if New York broke him or that's who he was all along. But apparently, according to a lot of people down there, he hasn't really done much to show that Sean Payton, or to tell Sean Payton he needs to be the guy.
Right, and that's the same thing I've heard too. And his reps are going to be limited because they need to get a look at Bo Nix, and I just don't think it's going to happen. And look, it'd be a great story if it did. It'd be a great story if he progressed so much in August that he could be their starter. But I think people out here made a big deal about it. People everywhere made a big they traded for Zach Wilson. They traded for Zach Wilson. It was basically no cost. They spent nothing. They were just like, New York just wanted to get rid of him, give him a second chance. They did right by him. And for Denver, it was like, well, we got no quarterback. We might as well do a late-round draft swap. So I don't give him like a 5% chance to start opening day maybe. And that's even something really needs to go wrong with Bo Nix at that point. Like, you would probably really need to struggle in August for that to happen. And it stinks for Zach. I hope that he finds success in the NFL, has like a Geno Smith type of renaissance at some point, but I don't think it's going to be Week 1 this season. Let's put it that way.
All right, we talk about a BYU quarterback. Let's talk about a Utah State quarterback in Jordan Love, not participating in camp right out of the gate as they work on an extension. Is that coming from his camp? Is that coming from the Packers? Is that just a mutually decided thing? Give us the genesis of that.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't really thought about the fact that the Packers might, because there's no reason they want him out on the field.
Yeah.
I assume it's Jordan's camp, and I just think that this is a short-term thing. Everybody wants to get a deal done. These deals can be very, very complicated when you're talking about $50 million a year or whatever he's going to end up getting. There's some risk here. Like, we forget, I think everybody's kind of forgotten that 7 games into last season, the Packers are 2-5. Jordan Love has really struggled, and their general manager, Brian Gutekunst, came out and said, hey, there's really Big Ten games coming up for Jordan Love, insinuating that we don't know if he's the guy for 2025. And basically the last 10 games of the regular season, 2 playoff games change everything to the point where we assume he's going to get paid about $50 billion a year like the rest of the top quarterbacks, the young quarterbacks in the NFL. So there still is some risk here, but I think the Packers have seen enough, and truly he was really, really good. The tape don't lie. He was an excellent quarterback the second half of last season. I assume he's going to get paid within the next few days here because they don't – I don't think it's a big deal right now, but if we're sitting here in, 2 weeks and we're still saying, hey, Jordan Love hasn't practiced, then it might become kind of an issue, but not yet. I think that's going to get worked out in a short time.
Well, and, in this day and age when quarterback and high-level quarterback play is so scarce in the NFL, when you have somebody who has a stretch like that, you got to get him compensated and you got to get the man paid. But it'll be interesting to see how well he ended up that season, if he comes back to earth a little bit this year or if he stays on that same trajectory. What are your thoughts on what you see out of him this second full season as a full-time starter?
The top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. There's nothing that said what he can't do is touchdowns, 1 interception over the last 10 games, something in that range. He just looked excellent. And I think some progression is coming. I don't think Jordan Love is going to go on he's not going to have a season where he throws 35 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Like that's just kind of unreasonable. But I do think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL this year, and the Green Bay Packers are going to be very, very happy with him for the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, he's just look. It doesn't always work out where you wait on a guy and then he gets a shot and takes off like Jordan Love. But it really worked with them. It looks like the Packers once again have this succession plan at quarterback where they're going to be really good there for the next decade.
Well, let's talk about another old Packers quarterback. What do you expect out of Aaron Rodgers at the tender age of 72 years old for another year with the with the Jets?
And that's the thing. We just talked about this on our Yahoo Sports podcast, and a point I didn't make that I should have made is if you could reveal to me the statistical line of any player in the NFL for this season ahead of time, I'd probably pick Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers holds so many keys to this NFL season where if he's average, and I think that's reasonable if he stays healthy, like as a 4-time MVP, if he's average, the Jets are going to be probably a playoff team. If Aaron Rodgers is a top 6-7 quarterback, which, again, also in the range of outcomes, I think the Jets could be the best team in the AFC. And if Aaron Rodgers stinks, as most 41-year-old quarterbacks do, then the Jets are probably going to be firing their coach by Halloween, and they're going to completely reset everything in the offseason. There's just so much uncertainty over what Rodgers is going to be and how the Jets are going to follow. Everything else, the table's set for the New York Jets to be really good. There's only one variable in play here, and that's Aaron Rodgers. Their defense is going to be top 5 in the NFL, maybe the best in the NFL. Skill position-wise are good. The offensive line has been fixed pretty well. It's just, what does Aaron Rodgers have left off this Achilles injury as he's about ready to turn 41 in December? And I don't know an answer. I think he's going to be good. I'm high on the Jets. I pick the Jets win the AFC East. I could even see them making a Super Bowl, but I just don't know. And until we see Aaron Rodgers play, we really don't know. It's tough to bet against a guy who's that much of an all-time great. Normal rules don't apply to those type of players, but man, if you look at a history of 41-year-old quarterbacks, it's really, really thin, and a 41-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles makes it even more scary.
Well, I just remember Peyton Manning in 2013 being, all worldly, and then it only took 2 calendar years for him not to be able to throw a consistent 15-yard out. Like when it goes fast, and it
went south for him so quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, it does for most quarterbacks. Look, the history of 40 to 41-year-old quarterbacks in the NFL is Tom Brady, who was just we haven't given enough credit to him being a freak. He is literally the outlier in NFL history. Not everybody's going to be Tom Brady. He might be one of one for a long time. Warren Moon had an 82 rating one time, and Drew Brees had a pretty solid year his last year. That's it. That is literally the only positive history for 41-year-old quarterbacks in NFL history, and we're talking about 124 seasons of it. So if Aaron Rodgers is good, I'm just saying, 12th best quarterback at the NFL type of good, he will literally be one of a group of 3 or 4 guys in NFL history. That's what he's battling right now, and that's what makes it so fascinating.
Frank Schwab, Yahoo Sports, joining us. All right, so you answered my next question because I was looking at the AFC East. I was going to ask you, who do you think wins that division out of Buffalo or Miami? But you think it might be the Jets. Let's just take the Jets out of it. Let's say Aaron Rodgers is, not good this year or, doesn't recover from that injury at a high level. Would you put your Skittles on Buffalo or Miami to win that division?
I think Buffalo easy. I think Miami takes a little bit of a step back. They didn't have a great offseason, lost a couple of key guys. They just couldn't beat good teams last year either, and that worries me. They had one quality win all year, and it was against Dallas at home in the last-second field goal. They beat up bad teams, which is fine, but to me, I like to ride with teams that have quality. They could be quality opponents. I think we've gotten a little too negative on the Bills this offseason. Once they traded Diggs and lost a couple other kind of name guys because of salary cap stuff, we all thought the sky was falling in Buffalo. Well, Diggs was pretty much a non-factor the last 13 games last year. He just was. I don't know if he's going to reclaim that in Houston or what, but he was a non-factor. And I don't know that they miss him as much as we all think they'll miss him. And they were a really, really good team last year. They just had a bad day on a bad day. They lost to the Chiefs at home when all the cards were set up for them to win that, move on to an AFC Championship game, and that's what we remember. But over the totality of the regular season, they were a good team that lost some close games that made the record worse. But I think even if Buffalo slips, they're still not going to fall out of the top 6 or 7 teams in the NFL. They're really good still with that quarterback. So I think the Bills are easily either the best or the second best team in the AFC East. I think the Dolphins take a little bit of a step back. I like them. They're fun, but I just think that they're the regression candidate for me this season. And I think the Bills are going to be much better than everybody anticipates.
Am I off base in my prediction that I think the Chargers could challenge for a wild card spot this year?
Maybe a lot of people agree with that. I don't. I think it's going to take Jim Harbaugh some time. He's a great coach, but I just don't think his personnel's in place. Their receiver room stinks. They want to run the ball a lot, and their running backs are no good. Just personnel-wise, I don't think they're set up well to succeed right away. Now, I also account for the fact that maybe Harbaugh over Brandon Staley is one of those upgrades of coach that it could be a 4 or 5 win type of upgrade. We don't know. And so I don't discount the fact that the Chargers might be good. I'm not leaning that way this season. I just think it's going to take Harbaugh a year or two to get his guys into place and to get reacclimated to the NFL, because 9 years is a really, really long time to be away in terms of NFL years. It's like dog years. So I'm against them. I don't think the Chargers are going to be very good this season. But would it shock me if they ended up being a wild card making the playoffs? No, not at all. Because the one thing about Jim Harbaugh, he's a weird dude, right? He is a quirky guy, but he wins everywhere he goes. He is a really, really good football coach. They made a really good hire. Harbaugh's going to win there. It's just a matter of, is it year 1, year 2, year 3? But because it's coming, Harbaugh's going to have that team as a playoff team pretty soon. It's just when it happens.
What do you get the vibe is holding back things in Dallas with Dak and a contract extension? Is it just they're just not ready to go all in, or or Dak's maybe asking for too much, or what do you think the holdup is there?
And I think that Dak's smart and kind of holding back a little bit. If he can ask for whatever he wants to ask for right now, because he's going to get it somewhere. If we see desperation at quarterback all the time. We saw a couple of years ago that Cleveland Browns gave up 3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and $230 million guaranteed contract for Deshaun Watson. Imagine if Dak Prescott has a good year like he did last year when he finished second in the MVP, or top 3 in the MVP. Maybe he finished third. If Dak repeats what he did last year, he's going to hit the open market at still a prime age, and some team like the Las Vegas Raiders is going to just give him a blank check. So what do you want? You want $65 million a year? Fine. We don't care. You're going to fix our quarterback situation. So why would Dak Prescott sign for anything less than what he thinks he's worth right now? He looks at Trevor Lawrence and says, I'm a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. Look at the stats. Trevor Lawrence is making $55 million a year, and I'm better than Trevor Lawrence, period. The end of story. So we're going to start the negotiations above that, and I can see why Dallas would be like, wow, we're talking about an NFL record deal when we don't have Micah Parsons re-signed, we don't have CeeDee Lamb re-signed, and we haven't won a Super Bowl with you. We're going to pay $60 million, $62 million a year, whatever it's going to be for a quarterback who hasn't even gotten us where we want to go. So I see why this hasn't gotten done. This is going to be a very complicated deal. And at the end of the day, I think it gets done just because it's rare to see a quarterback like Dak at the open market, but it's going to be a lot of zeros at the end. It's going to be the kind of bump in contract and the record that's going to be set that I think is going to give sticker shock to a lot of people. But Dak has all the leverage right now to get that kind of deal that we just have literally never seen before in the NFL.
Joe Burrow looks to be healthy, coming back off that wrist injury. Look, the dude's dealt with injuries. The offensive line hasn't been great there. Do you anticipate that he gets back into his prime form right out of the gate, or is it going to take a while to ramp up for him?
Yeah, I hope so, because he's so fun. He's just such a great quarterback. But I worry. I mean, this is a type of injury that even Joe said, I researched it, and I couldn't find one other quarterback that's ever had this injury. So how can we know for sure that he's just going to be back 100%? And there's a difference. Like, I think people get this confused all the time. Just because a guy's on the field again does not mean he's 100%. Like, we just assume he is. Like, oh, there's number 9 wearing the black and orange, the tiger stripes. But it doesn't mean that his fastball hasn't gone from 98 miles an hour to 96. And that's a big difference in NFL terms, right? To use a baseball comparison. I want him to be great again. I hope he's great again. I think he will be. I mean, if I had to guess one way or another, I think Joe Burrow will be just fine. But I'm worried enough that, maybe it does take a little bit of time. And there were other things under the hood with the Bengals. We like to think of that lost Bengals season when they didn't make the playoffs as, they lost Joe Burrow and they stunk, and that's it, period, end of story. Jake Browning had a better passer rating than Joe Burrow did last year. I mean, it was not just that Joe Burrow got hurt and the offense fell apart like happened to the Jets. The Bengals had major defensive issues last year, big offensive line issues that were exposed when Burrow dealt with his calf injury early in the season. T. Higgins became a ghost as he worried about his contract. I just had more questions about the Bengals than I would like right now. They're very high in the Super Bowl odds, and I understand why, because Burrow's that great, and they were a championship contender for the 2 years before last year. I'm just a little bit nervous. I just want to see it first. I just want to see it first out of Burrow and the Bengals before I really buy into them being a contender again. Before we let you go, who's a team that was a non-playoff team, and maybe you just answered it with the Bengals, I don't know, but who's a non-playoff team that you think takes that next step this year, either in the AFC or NFC? And, if I can answer, I'll answer this in a different way for you, because they made the playoffs last year. I think that people are sleeping on them as how good they can be, and that's the Cleveland Browns. Oh, okay. And the fact that and I know that's not the exact. If I had to pick a non-playoff team, I'd pick the Seahawks. I think Mike McDonald's going to be really good there. But I just think the Browns are 40-1 right now to win the Super Bowl. They went 11-6 last year with corpses at quarterback. They were awful at quarterback last year. Joe Flacco did all of a sudden find a fountain of youth, getting off of his couch in November and getting a Southwest flight to Cleveland. He won because the Browns were that good around him, and they are just that good. And I know Deshaun Watson's not an easy guy to root for, and even saying root for is a kind of – I'm not rooting for the guy. Knowledge that the last 2 years were really, really screwy for him. A lot of his fault. I'm not feeling sorry for him. But Deshaun Watson was a top 6-7 quarterback with the Houston Texans, and he's 28 years old, I believe. And if we assume that 2022 and 2023 were just lost weird years for him, if Deshaun Watson can play as well as 2023 Joe Flacco, that team won 11 games with that setup. What if Deshaun Watson's a top 12 type of quarterback again? Can the Browns improve to 13, 14 wins? I think so. I really do. This is one of my kind of crazy takes going into the season, that I think the Browns are going to make a Super Bowl. I think that they are that good on defense. They're that good around the quarterback position, and I still have this weird faith in Deshaun Watson being a good quarterback. I don't think he's ever going to be top 6-7 again. I don't think that guy works here anymore. But I think he could be good enough that he could be much better in 2023 Joe Flacco with a 2-time Coach of the Year in Kevin Stefanski. I think the Browns are going to be really, really, really good this season. They're really set up to win. It's just if Deshaun Watson can be good. I'm not asking him to be great anymore. If Deshaun Watson is good, the Cleveland Browns might be the best team in the NFL this year. You know, it's interesting because there's certain cities that you just like, you know what? It'd be good for them. You know, if the Browns were to go to and win a Super Bowl, for nobody who's got a dog in the fight, you'd be like, that'd be cool. I know. It stinks, though, because nobody's rooting for them because of Deshaun Watson. Yeah, that's true. Around the country, it's not a Lions. I think everybody's rooting for the Lions, and in some ways I am too, because they're that story of, man, and after losing the NFC Championship game the way they did, nobody's rooting for the Browns anymore. Nobody. And that stinks for them because they should be that feel-good team, but their quarterback is complicated, to say the least.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Sometimes you forget about that pass for a little bit, and then you're like, ooh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Hey, Frank, appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining us. Always great conversation, and enjoy whatever day or two you have left before your busy season starts.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
Frank Schwab, Yahoo Sports, NFL guru, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is DJ and PK.
RSL head coach Pablo Mastroni.
For you, as you have messages to deliver to the team, is it more effective to use profanity to the team in English or Spanish?
The Spanish guys say I use a lot of profanity. Spanish was my first language. We moved to the States when I was 4. I grew up in a family of butchers, and we owned a butcher shop in Argentina, and it was all the guys working in the butcher shop. So I learned all the bad words, and I would always say it. The guys would laugh, and all the women in the family would always be like, this is ridiculous. It's so funny because I rarely use profanity in English, and the only time I ever use it is to really make a point of emphasis. But in Spanish, apparently, I use it all the time without even knowing, because that's the way I was raised.
I bleep and love it.
Catch DJ and PK mornings from 6 to 10 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The wheel is loaded, and it's time to talk some sports. This is Sports Roulette with Hanson Scotty on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Happy Monday, everybody. Yep, our guy Hans Olsen's off today, as we found out earlier. Went on vacation, kind of led us to believe that his wife was like, hey, we need to get one last little run in before the football season starts. I don't know, Lloyd. That's what I was led to believe. And whether or not
now I'm trying to remember, because usually it's like, yeah, Mama needs we're going to go out to a Dodgers game, whatever. Like, I feel like that's what happened, but that's because it's happened so many times.
Now, he did say that, he was going to baseball games. He mentioned that he's going to his favorite stadium, Chavez Ravine, and, he loves Dodger Stadium, like you, Lloyd.
One of the bigger Dodgers fans I know.
Yeah, he really loves going to those Dodger games.
He does. Loves himself a Dodger dog, apparently.
Do you think he's doing that just to annoy you?
Maybe.
Because make no mistake, the efforts that he goes to try to get under our skin,
I know,
is pretty legendary.
It is. You know what? There probably is a little bit of that, but our guy's so cheap that to do that just to annoy me would be next level.
Okay, I'm gonna let you on a little secret on Hans. Hans, I gotta be careful how to say this. Hans loves to have people believe that he's very cheap, and 90% of the time he is. But the stuff that he really truly cares about, he'll spend money on. Right. So he's got this baseball kick right now. So he will spend money on tickets to go see baseball games because he's fallen in love with baseball. If it involves his pets or his dogs, he will spend money on those dogs. Like, there are certain things that if he deems it worthy, he will be more than happy to spend money on.
Vacations are one of those things. Yes,
yep.
One of those types of things, some sort of exotic beach.
Yep. But when it comes to things that he does not want to or he does not care about, that's when he gets super, super cheap. So just, let you behind the curtain a little bit. If he loves it, and baseball right now seems to be really high on that list, he'll go out there and he'll spend some money for sure.
Like most times, like I like to have a drink of some sort to wet my whistle when I'm having food, like a soda of some sort. Yeah. He will not pay for a soda for the most part. Like if you go to he'll not have any liquid whatsoever. Like he'll go with no liquid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you need something? You want me to get you a drink? No, I'm good. Okay.
I shouldn't tell this story. The infamous Subway story.
Yeah, no.
I kind of said it once on the air because I thought we talked about it and we had not. But let's just say Hans is a very intimidating figure that can get away with things that the normal person cannot. All right. Let's get to it. Sports Roulette. Some of the big storylines we've not had a chance to get to or spend enough time on. We put it on a roulette wheel, we spin it, and wherever that little white ball lands is what we end up talking about. So, Lloyd, with that, fire that sucker up.
South Sudan scare.
South Sudan nearly pulled off one of the biggest upsets in basketball history, leading by 1 late against Team USA. Now, granted, this is not even a preliminary game. This is all just friendly competition, tune-up games for Team USA. Playing South Sudan. South Sudan goes up by 1 late on a late 3 by JT Thor. LeBron James is able to get a driving layup to give Team USA the lead with seconds remaining, able to get stops down the stretch, and Team USA gets the victory. Yes, everybody's talking about the sky is falling. It's not falling. Team USA may not win a gold medal this year. I am a firm believer that, yes, the rest of the world is doing incredible strides in catching up, and there's going to be good teams out there, and all Team USA needs to do is lose 1 game in those medal rounds, and it's very distinctly possible that that could happen. But still, come on. If you're at Team USA and the field for a gold medal this year, you're still taking Team USA, and you're not even thinking twice about it. So, not saying they're going to win a gold. I'm 90% believe they'll get a golden medal this year. But I would not worry about this South Sudan game and feel like, uh-oh, it's all falling apart. I'm not quite there yet. Not in a game like this. I don't think these dudes are taking it seriously. I think they're just trying to find key matchups. I think they're trying to find their rotation. They look like a team that's just been thrown together, and they're just trying to figure themselves out. And that's what they are. And, in fact, that's what's going on right now as we spin the wheel again.
Update.
Germany right now leading Team USA 71-66. So, between this and the South Sudan score, are you nervous about Team USA in the Olympics? Still, my answer is no.
It's just like the Titanic, but it's full of bears!
It's not like the Titanic, only it's full of bears. It's fine. Team USA could lose to Germany, and it will be okay. By the way, you're having big performances today. I know that now I'm losing my computer's having some. Dennis Schroeder's having himself a good name. Mo Wagner. I mean, these are all good players. These are all NBA players that Team USA is dealing with against Germany, and Germany's giving them all kinds of problems. So again, surprising? Not really. Will this be surprising if it happens in, medal rounds? Yes. Yeah, it will be. But for today, it's fine. Calm down. Everything's going to be all right. Lloyd, spin the wheel.
Charles may be sticking around.
So Turner Sports, who appeared to be out of the running for the NBA rights, has now informed the league that it will match the $1.8 billion deal offered by Amazon Prime Video. Turner has had an NBA package since 1984. They've had games since 1988. Of course, we all love Inside the NBA. And right now, you've got the NBA Board of Governors approving the league's 11-year media rights with Disney, NBC, and Amazon Prime Video. All received 3 contracts. However, Turner is saying that we still want to be in the mix, and we're still willing to work, and we still want to be a part of the NBA in some way, shape, or form. If that does indeed happen, then maybe we do have Inside the NBA back. If they are able to carve out some kind of role, Inside the NBA would continue. Charles Barkley has been very critical of Turner Sports and their negotiating posture, and was certainly not optimistic that they would come up with a matching offer, but they have, at least according to Turner Sports, they have matched that offer, and they do fully anticipate having the NBA back on Turner Sports. Now, whether or not that happens, we'll see. But as of right now, TNT apparently has decided that, yes, we will be involved, we will match, and we want it back. And I got to think with the popularity of Inside the NBA, that's got to be enough to kind of push it over the top. because that is a key piece of the NBA landscape that everybody needs, everybody wants a part of. And look, from a selfish standpoint, I don't even look at it as sports programming. I look at it as an entertainment programming. Look, it could be the Washington Wizard and Cleveland, layup line. And if Inside the NBA is covering it, I'm gonna watch it, because that's just how good the chemistry is and how much fun that show is. And if you're watching that show to get great NBA insight, that's not the show for you. It really isn't. I mean, you're not learning a lot about the game with those guys. What you are is being entertained. Barkley says a lot of dumb stuff. Shaq says a lot of dumb stuff about the NBA. Those dudes go after the nerds, and they try to make personal attacks against some of these guys because they look at the game differently. And a lot of what they say is factually wrong. Like, let's be honest, Barkley says a lot of really wrong things about the league. And they don't come across as the most informed dudes when it comes to the league. But are they the most entertaining? By a mile. And everybody else has been doing everything they can to try to replicate the chemistry, and nobody's been able to do it. How many dopey ESPN studio shows have we seen throughout the years? They try, look, they'll Bill Simmons out there with Michael Wilbon, Stephen A. Like, they throw out all these different combinations, hoping and praying that they can somehow replicate the greatness that it is inside the NBA, and nobody's been able to do it. And nobody's even come close to doing it. And we'll probably never come close to doing it again. And the NBA's got to realize that. So if they've got a matching financial offer from TNT, they got to take it. All right, 2:48. Final break. Get you ready for JJ and Alex coming up next, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
G-Bass!
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Woo! Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot, or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Any part of the show, every moment of every show is available in podcast form by searching Hans and Scotty on your favorite podcasting platform or online at KSLSports.com. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Standing here beside you, want so much to give you this love in my heart that I'm feeling for you.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, wrapping up another edition of the show. Big thanks to everyone who helped us out. It was a fun one today. Always love coming down here, hanging out at Tim Daly Mazda Southtown. These guys are so great. They're ready to help you out with whatever you may need. And, hey, look, they killed as always. Hey, remember, JJ and Alex coming up next. They're going to be live at Riverton City Park, 1452 West, 126 South on the south side. It's the Olympic Week kickoff party. All kinds of great stuff going on. Free photos, face painting, treats, games, music. As we're just about 48 hours away, Lloyd, from the announcement of Salt Lake City officially getting the Winter Games in 2034. We all know it's happening, and it's a done deal. It just hasn't become an official deal as of yet, but it will be coming up on Wednesday, and KSL will have all the excitement. And Sam Farnsworth is obviously part of the KSL Sports staff. He is in Paris and sending all kinds of video of their broadcast site. And, if we can work through the 14 different agents that he is currently employed, we may get him on this week. I don't know.
We'll get him on.
I don't know.
Get him on.
He's like, I'm going to need you to talk to this person who's going to talk to this person who then will reach out to this person.
He's got people who have people.
Look, I mean, geez,
his people have people.
Sam is locking it down.
Sam Farnsworth, man.
It's like,
big deal.
I'm Sam and you're not. You need to do not make eye contact with him, and heaven forbid you contact him directly. Do not do that. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.